السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. اب چیک کرتے ہیں آواز کیسی آ رہی ہے. Let's see. صحیح لگ رہی ہے میں تو آج بالکل بہترین آواز لگ رہی ہے میرے تو. رائٹ. چلیں بھائی, آج کا ٹائٹل ہے پروو اسلام فالس چیلنج. تو دیکھتے ہیں لوگوں کو وہ لوگ کیا کرتے ہیں. جب تک ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ لوگ ویڈیو یوٹیوب پہ اگر کچھ لسی چھوٹی ویڈیو ہے یار, یہ بہت لمبی لمبی بڑی بڑی ویڈیو ہے. نو مسلم کین رسپونڈ. تو یار یہ دیکھتے ہیں بکواس سی ویڈیو چھوٹی. لنک سب بھائیوں کے لیے. آواز صحیح آ رہی ہوتی ہے بتا. السلام علیکم. ہیلو بھائی جو بھی ادھر آیا ہوا ہے, جس کو بھی آڈیو آ رہی ہے, کیسے ہیں سب؟ ہوپ فلی سب اچھے ہی ہوں گے. تھوڑا کچھ کھا بھی رہا. رائٹ. دا اسٹیج از اوپن. اسٹریم یارڈ پہ آئے. مسلمان ہے, اگر کوئی سوال ہے, ہوپ فلی انٹرسٹنگ سوال ہے تو پلیز پوچھیں. اگر کوئی نان مسلم ہے تو پلیز آؤ اسٹیج پر, بات کرو, سوالات لاؤ, تو اس پر ہم بات کریں گے انشاءاللہ تعالی. جب تک ہم ایک ویڈیو بھی دیکھ سکتے ہیں, جب تک کوئی آ نہیں رہا کہ اس بندے نے کیا ببونگی ماری ہے about اسلام being true. فاردین کوئی آیا ہے, پرائیویٹ چیٹ میں بتا دو یار کہ کیا بلیف ہے تمہارا, تو میں ابھی تمہیں بس لیتا ہوں تھوڑی دیر میں. پانی پی لوں. ٹھیک ہے, صحیح ہے. مسلمان السلام علیکم.
Walaikum Assalam, brother. Let me clarify something, brother. I can't talk in Hindi or Urdu. I think we have to
No
carry on our
problem.
conversation in English. But I do understand Urdu and Hindi. I'm from that area, so I actually understand Urdu and Hindi pretty well. So you can also converse with me in Urdu or Hindi if you want. Okay?
Yeah, it's fine. I'll do it in English. It's fine.
I actually, went through a scheme through your channel for a not that long time, but I've seen some of your videos. That's why I came, in your channel to see, what kind of arguments. When my question is, what kind of arguments would you give to prove the, soundness or validity of Islam? Not the arguments for the existence of God, but for the argument for the validity or soundness or truthfulness of Islam. That's my question. Let's try to be, what should I say, consistent with the rules of logic, because I really want to, what should I say, I advance in this topic in this way. That's what. Yeah.
Good word. Yeah, sure. Give me a
Yeah.
second. I'll open one
Okay.
thing. Okay, I'll
Okay.
open
Okay.
one thing. I'm working on a book. In that, I've written a portion about the basis of truth. The how do we reach truth? How do we know something?
Hmm.
The book is basically about Islamic ideology versus the Western ideology of today, basically. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so let me just share this real quick.
I mean, is the book available in PDF?
Not right now. It's not complete. I'm just gonna share a portion. I'm still
Okay.
working on it,
Okay.
so I'm gonna share a portion right now.
Oh, oh, it's your book.
Yes, I'm working on it.
Oh, I get it.
So it's easy for me to explain because it's my own book, first of all, and it seems relevant to the discussion that you're
Yeah.
pointing
Yeah.
towards.
Obviously.
So first, here we go. Um, s- okay, so let me just zoom in. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yeah. 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 I can.
There you go. Perfect. So you see, this is how knowledge is seen as, how knowledge works. Okay, so basically, if you see the screen, you can see science, logic, and metaphysics. So this is like a letter. So the basis of all knowledge is metaphysics. In the Islamic uh, studies, or you can say the Islamic perspective of knowledge, metaphysics, or most aspects of metaphysics, have to do with God, or they're identical to God. So, for example, metaphysics studies the basis of all reality, or the fundamental of all reality. This is the first thing that is the first endeavor that needs to be studied to know anything. Okay, I'm gonna skip because it's not it can be too deep for at this level, you can say. So close this, please. Okay. Yeah, so
Brother, can we
yeah,
have some clarification between us before advancing this topic?
okay. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I will be clarifying, don't worry. Okay, so as you
Okay.
can
Nah,
see,
no, no. I'm saying let me clarify something about myself so that you
okay, okay,
understand where I'm coming from. Okay.
okay, sure.
So I'm not going to be assuming empiricism in here. Okay. I'm not going to be assuming empiricism. You can say we can go on rational grounds, meaning if there is a compatibility of law of logic, the three laws, then we can accept it. If by necessity from the law of logic we can prove something, obviously the necessity has to be proven by the by showing a contradiction in the excluded middle of the other half, so that we can prove that the other half is logically necessary, right? I want to advance this topic in this way. I really don't want to, assume, though there are metaphysical significance in here. I know that, but even in Islam, you have many different, scholars, great scholars like Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. He actually rejected this kind of different kinds of metaphysical distinction, and he thought of it as something that exists only in the mind, as a conceptualist. It's coming from a conceptualist background. So I really want. That's why I don't want to assume that anything. Though logic can be said to be the the most general category in here. So I want to just what should I say? Talk about this topic in terms of the law of logic and the possibilities and the necessities.
Yes, I get what you're trying to say. First of all, I'd like to clarify. I think you've misunderstood Ibn Taymiyyah Rahimahullah's position when he talks about conceptualism, nominalism. He didn't deny metaphysics. He didn't say that there was no thing as metaphysics. Obviously, he didn't deny that. The thing that you're talking about is completely something else. The philosophers believe the essences extramentally existed. Ibn Taymiyyah said no, essences are mere conceptuals. It's a whole another debate
No, no, I'm not saying
discussion.
that he denied metaphysics. I'm saying that he denied the Platonic forms, and also
Yeah.
to some degrees the Aristotelian forms. But what I'm saying, yeah, he obviously holds some metaphysical ideas. That's why I'm saying that you can also regard the law of logic as something metaphysical, because you don't necessarily directly observe the law of logic, or even the observation is also close to our inductive generalization. So
No, we need
law
to.
of logic is
The reason this discussion is important, we need to understand where these laws of logic come from. Because if we understand where these laws of logic come from and we expand and we move forward with that way of reasoning, it'll be easier to build on top of it. If we just start with the laws of logic and we don't know where the laws of logic come from, and then we use the laws of logic and you say, oh, but, and we are reaching a truth, we are reaching something, and you say, oh, but the laws of logic does not conclude this, and but metaphysical truths do conclude this. So this is another discussion. So we need to understand why metaphysics is important. I'll just be let it be brief. Don't worry. I won't go too much
Okay.
into attention. Okay. Right. Give me a second. Water. So yeah. So metaphysics is the basis for reality. Logic is how logic you can see it as it is say is based on this reality. Logic cannot be something other than reality. Anything, any kind of logic, if it's other than reality, it's illogical, right? I'm gonna skip to logic here because logic merely represents the truths about reality or makes us formulate the truths. On top of ilahiyat or metaphysics are rational sciences that act as a bridge between the natural world and the metaphysical world. The rational sciences that are being referred to here are such as metaphysics, mathematics, that help us build the bridge between science and metaphysics. So logic and mathematics only have very few differences between them, right?
Yeah, you can say that to some degrees.
Yeah. So this is what logic is. Now we need to understand how do we reach truth. We need to understand how do we reach truth with this logic and this understanding of metaphysics. Now, let's say we have already understood metaphysics. We have believed that there's a God and He is the foundation of our logic. The reason that our logic even makes sense is because there is a fundamental reality, right? So let's assume we have already reached that conclusion by rational endeavors. Okay, but the problem just give me a second. The problem that arises here is of the problem that arises here is how do we reach truth. Now I'm going to skip here. There are certain ways to reach truth, and in the Islamic tradition there's a specific way, and I'm going to be using, and this is basically a kind of agreed upon way. Imam al-Ghazali in Iqtisad fil I'tiqad, he mentions there are certain known principles of knowledge. Okay, so there are few ways that you can reach knowledge by certainty. I've skipped one in this book. There's a sixth one, but that has to do with dialectics, and this book wasn't, this book didn't have to do with dialectics, so I kept that aside. First one is mushahada. So, for example, my senses, I know by my senses, for example, my own existence, you can say, or I experience my own existence, and that is why I know my own existence. That is, you can debate if we know our own existence a priori or posteriori. That's another. Or, for example, I know that I'm sitting, I know I'm talking by my sensibles or my senses or by experience or by, you can even say, experiments. I'm, in a way, I'm experiencing and experimenting. So this gives us knowledge. This is one of the ways. The reason we need to understand this is because someone would argue that, but this is nothing, this doesn't have anything to do with logic. You're not proving to me that what you see is true by showing me a logical syllogism. And I'll say, yes, I'm not. The logical syllogisms are based on these first principles. Logical syllogisms are used to infer, they're used to reason. Logical syllogism comes here. Logical syllogisms comes at qiyas. When you're doing qiyas, that's when logical syllogisms comes. Before that, you don't need to do logical syllogisms, right? Then there are pure intelligibles. For example, things we know in a sense a priori. For example, existence exists. So existence exists is, we know that by a priori. Everything that begins to exist has a starting. Okay, very simple. everything that begins to exist is temporal. These are pure intelligibles. The words themselves and the concept themselves, we know them purely by their concept that this is true. Okay? And then we have revelation that obviously will come after we know that Islam is true. Then we have qiyas, which is basically deductive reasoning, and this is where logic plays a role. Logic is what is logic? Okay, the way that logicians have defined logic is the correct rules and methods of inference, or the methods and rules of correct inference. This is what logic is. So without inference, you're not really going to be doing logic, right? So if there are a set of knowledges that we have, there are things that we know from yaqeen, certainty, without inference. So it's without using logic, but it itself is logical because it does not go beyond the laws of logic, right? So this is what we need to understand. Why is this important? Because we are going to talk about mutawatir. Mutawatir reports is where most of the evidences for Islam will come. For example, the Quran, the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ, and the prophecies. And mutawatir does not necessarily need to mean that something that was heard for centuries. It can also mean something that that in a sense has so much evidence for it that it is impossible for it to be wrong. For example, Imam al-Ghazali gives this really good example in his book of Usul. He says that when we are eating or when I'm drinking water and I'm thirsty, I don't exactly know which drop of water stopped my thirst. I don't know which drop of water fulfilled my thirst and I was satisfied. But I know that the water satisfied me, right? I was given yaqeen, but I don't know exactly at which number I was given yaqeen or at which point I was given yaqeen. Mutawatir are like that. And this yaqeen is identical to the yaqeen of mushahada. Mushahada is just one evidence and we are given yaqeen. With mutawatirat, it builds up, but yaqeen is achieved, right? Certainty is achieved. And once again, yaqeen is achieved and it does not go beyond the laws of logic, right? So,
Brother,
yeah.
sorry if I may interrupt. I am. If you are actually presenting it to your audience, then go ahead, no problem. But if you are trying to talk me through this, I'm already familiar with this. Pretty
Okay.
much familiar with this.
So, good. So, when we talk about the Islamic perspective, the way that we reason about the Prophet ﷺ, we can reason about his prophethood by many different ways. We can do qiyas, we can look at the mutawatirat. Okay, these will be the two main ways we know the truthfulness. So qiyas would have to do with the linguistic miracle of the Quran. The linguistic miracle of the Quran can be known by qiyas. Okay, basically we can form a syllogism. We can form basically you can say that this a book or a genre of a book should be replicable by its essence. Quran is not replicable by its essence. Okay, hence Quran is a miracle. Okay, or for example, if we are supposed to do it more precisely, everything that everything that cannot be naturalistically explained is a miracle. Quran cannot be naturalistically explained, hence Quran is a miracle. We can actually show the second premise to be true because of the first thing I said, that you cannot replicate it, and a genre of a book should be replicable, but it cannot be replicated. Quran cannot be replicated. This inability to replicate it cannot be naturalistically explained, hence Quran is a miracle, right? And there are many books for this, but some people, but this is something that you would need to study and we will need to talk about it, and you will need, I will need to show you more verses and stuff like that. Here I'll just give you a small preview in a sense. Like for example, Surah Kawthar, right? إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شأنك هو الأبتر. Surah Kawthar has, the material, you can say the Arabic language as its raw material. Then we have the um, linguistic tools of the Arabic language, the rhetorics, the rhetorical tools, right? For example, the rhetorical devices in Surah Kawthar itself is 40, I believe, 40 or 35 plus. Uh, Allahu Alam, I don't exactly remember the number. So the thing is that it is a specific genre. Now, this genre, due to the nature of how languages work, should be replicable, but it is not replicable. It's basically like saying I gave you a blueprint of a machine, like let's say some random machine or a ice cream machine. I don't know anything, for example. Then I gave you the raw
Brother,
materials. Yeah,
can we make the discussion a little bit more interactive?
sure. Just give me just let me end this point.
Okay, okay.
Then I
I,
gave
I
you
actually want I actually wanted to talk to you about the first point, about
okay,
the first premise, I guess.
okay, okay. Then I gave you the raw. Then I gave you the raw material to make the machine, and then you should be able to make the machine because you have the raw material, the blueprint, and you know how machines are made, and you know everything. You have the manpower, but you're not able to do it. Meaning that, but why are you not able to do it? That's the real question. You're not able to explain this inability to do it. You cannot naturalistically explain this. Hence, something that cannot be naturalistically explained is attributed to a divine agency. Hence, we call this a miracle. Yeah. So, what was your question?
Okay, the first premise was that something, some genre of books that is, oh, sorry, just some genre of books should be replicable, right? That was the first premise.
Yes, yes.
Is that an universal premise, or is that something that you
But
came about through induction?
so just give me a second. Everyone about that. Yeah. So this first premise. Now, this first premise is known by the nature of the subject. For example, if I were to say that every triangle has every triangle has three sides, or every triangle has three uh, lines, this wouldn't be known by induction, right? Neither deduction. This is known by the very nature of the thing that we're talking about, right? In a sense, you can say this is known by mushahada. See,
Uh, I mean,
okay,
then
so
there's what should I say? Then you come to this conclusion by induction, right?
no, it's not induction.
Then
Induction would mean that I experience, for example, if I say every triangle has three sides or three lines.
let's not draw the analogy from mathematics. So it's not completely, analogous to mathematics.
No, no.
There are certain features, and mathematics is just an idealized, shapes of the world, and that there is no, you can say mathematics is totally, what should I
Okay,
say,
for example,
tautological. But in the case of linguistic language, there are many differences, and these differences do make a huge change. I cannot maybe outline the many differences right now, but there are actually many differences in language.
okay. So the reason that I'm saying that, if I'm making this analogy, is because when you're saying that triangle has three sides, it is merely in the subject itself, the object itself that you're talking about, that we can formulate the premise. I don't need to do inductive reasoning. I don't need to experiment or see other examples of a triangle to make the conclusion. Merely on the object that we're talking about itself, we can make the conclusion. For example, the reason that I'm saying that the genre itself, the genre should be replicable. Okay, by its essence, it should be replicable, is because genre. What does genre mean, and what does replicability mean? So genre basically means we have a language, model. Okay, using the same tool. Okay, you use similar rhetorical devices to formulate different stories or literature. Okay, that is of the same caliber or similar pattern. That's basically it. There's nothing stopping. There's nothing stopping, and there's nothing stopping the language from having the same pattern with different vocabulary or letters. There's nothing stopping. So I don't need to do induction to know this. This is purely based on what language is. This is purely based on what a genre means. That we know that it should be replicable. You get this point?
No, that was not my point. My point was that some book or genre, right, if obviously it's from a from a naturalistic perspective, should be replicable by its essence. That's the premise. That's what the premise says. And the negation of the premise, meaning if it is not replicable, then it should be from a non-naturalistic perspective. But the replicability, when you say that something is replicable, how do you know that it's replicable? You have
Okay.
actually observed many of the genres of literatures being replicated for history, right? And that actually needs observation. Without
No,
observation, you cannot come to this conclusion. Yeah, you
you
can
can.
say that there are some general features within the language, some literary techniques, some rhetorical devices, some forms of some special uses of vocabulary. But that's a different thing. Replicability has to be obviously observed from history or from observation.
No, that's not necessary. That's the point that I'm making. The
No, but
reason.
that's the necessity in here, because let's say for the sake of argument, if there was some book that claims, let's say that claims that it actually replicates the Quran in an even better way, then what would you do? Because you agree with the first premise that the Quran is a literary genre, and you actually agreed with some of the additional conditions that you actually attach that a literary genre should be replicable. Now this should can also be put to doubt, but I'm not doing that here. But the thing is that when you say it's a literary genre, the replicability has to be seen through observation. You have to see, can anyone actually replicate it or not? If you say it's a
No.
general premise, then it actually, from my perspective, I think it's an argument from ignorance.
Okay. So you've completely understood the misunderstood the argument then.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
Then you can
Okay. I'll have.
let's get
Fine.
those terms then clear. Okay.
Okay. So you're saying that to know that a genre should be replicable, I need to have observation about other genres. That's what you said, right?
I
That's
haven't
basically
said
what you're
that.
saying.
I've said that in order to know that something is replicable or not, I have to observe the one who tries to replicate it or not. Now, let's say for the sake of argument, from you draw a timeline. You have a timeline of maybe 200 years, and within that 200 years, a great genre of literature was written. Like let's go to in the very past. Let's go to the time of Aristotle, and even before that, you have a guy who goes by the name Homer, right? He wrote a what should I say, great literature, a great two literature. I don't quite remember the name. I think it goes by the name Iliad or something like that. Yeah, and that piece of literature was pretty much, what should I say? It was known in the Greek civilization to be the greatest literary composition of the time. And still today, many people still regard that as one of the greatest literary works of all time. And still to this day, many people also argue that many people has failed to replicate exactly how the Homer actually, uh, composed in his literary magnificence. So
No, they
now,
don't. They don't.
okay,
I would
I,
like to
I
see that.
okay, I
No,
cannot be
because I know.
conclusive on this matter. I cannot
I've
be
actually
conclusive because I
studied
don't
this.
know.
I've
Okay, you
actually
can.
studied this, and the same thing is said about Shakespeare, but we have actual writers who have replicated their pattern and their genre, and that's the discussion that we're having. We're saying that the genre, by its essence, is something that should be replicable,
What do you mean
right?
by essence from here?
Okay, genre. Okay, when we're talking about a genre of a linguistic pattern, okay, basically language, we can write many things in a language using its vocabulary and letters and words and the sounds that a language has. Okay,
Mhm.
so this, when we compile this, there are many patterns that form. These individual patterns, when they have a fixed pattern, or you can call it a fixed pattern that formulates a book or a paragraph or a content, this is known as a genre. Okay, the very nature of what language does is it has limited numbers of rhetorical devices, it has limited number of letters, basically it had limited number of letters, and hence it's everything is limited. The rhetorical devices are limited, and hence so on and so forth, right? Okay, the way that languages can be used, that sure, not limited, and that is part of the why the genre is replicable. Sure, is by its essence replicable. So, for example, that and that's the reason I gave the example of the if you have the blueprint and if you have the uh, raw material, because when you're talking about the genre of a language, we are saying that we have the blueprint. We have the blueprint, which is basically if I tell you that give me a genre like Shakespeare, and I give you Shakespeare work, okay, and I give you like Shakespeare's work, and I say like go to the experts, go to whoever you want, and give me a book like it, okay, in this genre, and you know the you have the English language, so I gave you the blueprint by giving you the book. Then I say you have the raw material as well. What is the raw material? The raw material is the English language. The raw material is the English language, its letters, its vocabulary, its rhetorical devices. By its very nature, you have everything that gives you the ability to replicate it. The question arises that why isn't it replicable? And this question is we aren't able to answer when it comes to the Quran, because every other genre or every other um, book or paragraphs or anything literature, every other literature in its pattern is replicable. No, I'm not arguing that every other literature in its influence is replicable. No, I'm not arguing. I'm not saying that everyone can have such an influential work as Shakespeare. And not everyone can have such an influential work as Allama Iqbal, because they lived in their time. They did what they needed to do at their time. I'm not even arguing that. But when it comes to genre and their pattern, yes, Allama Iqbal's pattern can be replicated. Yes, Shakespeare pattern can be replicated. Everyone's pattern can be replicated because it's the nature of the language and how genres work. In this, it is in their
Okay,
essence due to them being part
can
of
you
that.
get a little bit deeper into the term replicated? What do you mean by the term replicated here?
Like I said, the pattern you need to be able to replicate
Just
the pattern. So, for
okay,
example,
what
for
do you mean? What do you mean? Wait, what do
let
you
me give
mean
you
by
an
the
example.
pattern? The way the sentence is composed, or the way,
Um,
what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, you can say that. The
Pinpoint the
construction,
term.
the construction of like the Quran gives a challenge uh, about the one of the chapters. Say bring forth one chapter. That's a challenge the Quran gives, right? So what happens is that the shortest chapter, like I said, is Surah Al Kawthar. If you're concentrating, I mentioned that it has 40 rhetorical devices. It has 10 letters and has 40 rhetorical devices, and has a specific pattern to it, right? All you have to do is use different letters, use the same rhetorical devices, and you should be able to generate that same pattern or that same genre. When people have tried, they have failed, and no Arabic uh, Arabic
Okay, so this is an
linguist
induction
is
right
able
now.
to explain how is this an induction.
How do you know that people have failed? By induction, by observation.
Oh, okay. I see the argument that you're trying to make.
No,
So you're
okay.
basically
Let me give you a disjunctive argument against your argument, against your first premise. Okay, either the Quran is replicable or it is not. These are conclusive options. You don't have any other options again. Outside that. Now, if the Quran is replicable, then you should have a criteria. You said, okay, this is the criteria of replicability of the Quran. Now, when you lay out the criteria, you obviously just don't lay out the criteria for no one to try it, right? You actually wait for someone to try it. Then you have to actually wait, for the succession, or wait, for the failure of the replicability of the Quran. And obviously you can build an argument of that, because it's an inductive generalization that is going to the future, to an indefinite time. The argument is indefinite at its nature. You cannot draw any conclusion for the argument.
no
You may not
you
know in the future there may be
okay.
someone who are
No,
actually,
you
I'm not
that's
saying there is one, I'm
that's
saying
not the argument
maybe.
I made. That's not the argument I
No, no,
made though.
that's the criticism that I'm making against you
Yeah, but that's not the
now.
argument I
but
make.
but
You're straw
but
manning my
let's
argument.
say, okay, no, no, okay,
Fardin, no, no, wait. You're
look, look,
strawmanning me.
even if, okay, even if I were strawmanning, then you could correct me, right? Straw meaning, what does straw meaning mean? Misrepresenting the argument, right? You can correct me,
Yes,
no problem.
you are.
Oh no,
You are.
okay, no
That's what I'm
problem.
saying.
You may okay, you may correct me, no problem. Now the
Okay.
second option, that is, it is not replicable. How have you arrived at this point? That it is not replicable.
Okay.
That's my argument. How have you arrived? Even if the replicability has to be arrived at induction by observing people who has succeeded
Okay.
or not,
Yeah, it's very
even the
simple.
failure
It's
has to be
it's
arrived at.
very simple. The
Yeah,
the
yeah.
conclusion that we made that it is not replicable is not by induction. I did not make this conclusion by seeing people that they were not able to do. We ourselves can experience that this is not replicable. When I tell you
Bruh, this is
here
circular
is
then.
wait,
I can
this is
say this is replicable and say I don't have to try it.
Fardin, I genuinely don't think you know what the terminologies you're using means. Okay, please show me
No,
how it is circular. Please show me how it is circular.
okay.
I'm being
When
very
you
respectful, but
say no,
you're
okay,
throwing
okay,
around
okay, okay,
jargon.
no problem, no problem. Okay, I am explaining you. If someone, if you actually ask for explanation, there's no problem with that. Now, if you say that these are the criteria for its applicability, and you think that this is not replicable by not seeing someone who has actually tried to replicate it, and you have actually, pretty much, what should I say, disjuncted, you have actually put away with the second premise that, have you seen everyone who has tried it? You said no, because that was your argument. You said the argument doesn't depend on this kind of, on this form. Then you're pretty much presupposing your argument that it's true by the way you're defining it.
Okay,
But
do
just
one
by
thing.
just
Do
because you
one
have
thing.
defined it some way,
Fardin,
it doesn't really make it
Fardin,
true, right?
do one thing. Tell me what my argument was.
Your argument was that every or all literary genres should be replicable by its essence, right? You have
Okay.
that was your first premise.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
said how the genres and the replicability. At first, what do you mean by genre and replicability? You have actually defined, okay, replicability means that the blue map of the whole, the structure, the blue map of the whole literature of what we are dealing with right now, right? And the replicability is you have some conditions that, okay, these are the some of the things that Quran follows on. Like you have said earlier that the Surah Al-Kawthar has some 40 to 50 whatever, I don't actually know that, 40 to 50 rhetorical devices and some other great, vocabulary techniques. Now you say that this was the condition to be fulfilled if you want to replicate the Quran. And then the question comes to you that, okay, how have you been assured that this was not replicated? Because the second premise that the Quran is not replicable. That was my question. How have you assured? From where did you came to this conclusion that it cannot be replicated? That was my question.
Yes. And the answer I gave is
Yeah, the answer you gave was that by the structure of the condition, it cannot be replicated. That's what circular reasoning is. You say this is the conditions, and this
I
condition cannot
said
be fulfilled by anyone.
no. I said see that's why I
You are
said it's
just
a
double
straw man.
negating the conclusion
No,
by arriving
That's
at
why
the very premise itself.
that's why I said you made a straw man of my
Okay,
premises.
no problem. Okay, then
Yeah, okay, let me speak.
restate your argument. No problem.
Let me speak.
Okay.
When you asked how do we know that it is not imitable, it is inimitable. I simply said we have the raw material and we have the uh, blueprint, right? And by the first premise, we know that genre should be replicable. So we have both these two things.
Okay, for your
Then
kind information, I actually don't know that genre can be applicable or not.
okay, yeah, it's fine if you don't know, if you don't uh, think that this is something that you know with certainty. That's fine, but it doesn't
I mean,
negate that this
I,
thing is
I-
true or
I'm
false.
very honest at here because I don't actually know anything about literature.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm saying that what you asked me, are the evidences that Islam gives? It does give these evidences. For example, the evidences for God's existence are a lot of time very philosophical. If someone doesn't know these philosophical terminologies, he won't understand it. It is on him to study and try to understand these terminologies, right? So similarly, it's on you to understand these terminologies, and then the first premise you will understand why it is true. Similarly, with the second premise, when you ask that how do you know this, I said we have the raw material, we have the blueprint. By the first premise, we know that something, either genre, should be imitable by its very nature and essence. Hence, now we can ourselves see if this is imitable, and it's not difficult at all. It literally just Surah Al-Kawthar. I've repeated it once more. It's 10 letters, 40 rhetorical devices, has a particular pattern. If you use the entire, if you use the,
Okay,
if
okay. Please, brother,
wait,
I want
further,
some clarification.
further,
Back
wait,
then,
hold
what do you
on,
mean by C?
further, further, wait. So when we do this mushahada ourselves, we can easily reach the conclusion that it is true. Or we can also do the method of mutawatirat. We take testimonies of reliable sources, and this would be for the layman.
Brother,
But someone who can himself actually do the mushahada, meaning he can actually use the Arabic language and attempt it, just 10 letters, he has the blueprint of the pattern, he will fail to do so. As simple as that. Yeah, what are you saying?
exactly. You have proven my point. You have to, at the end, come to this conclusion by induction, by observation. How have you come to this point? You have seen many reliable, great Arabic scholars failing to meet this criteria.
I said
That's exactly what I
I
was
said
saying. You
I
need to,
said there
in
are
order
two.
to know that this
I
conclusion
said
is true,
wait,
that
wait.
it's not replicable, you actually
I
need to
said
go to the
I s-
scholars.
listen. I said there are two ways to reach this conclusion. I said the first one is mushahada. It is personal experience. You actually do the test yourself. This is not by testimony. This is not way of testimony. Second one is you go to the experts. And also, according to our tradition, testimonies do give certain knowledge. Testimonies are not pure induction. You need to realize that. Testimonies are not pure induction. Yes, so when we go to our scholars and they're reliable scholars, and we know that these people are reliable and experts, we know with certainty that we know with certainty if it's an expert, we can know with certainty what he's saying. It's not rocket science, and that is why I mentioned mutawatirat. That is why first I mentioned mutawatirat. I mentioned everything. Mushahada, mutawatirat, and qiyas is on the fourth level. This is why I said this is very important to discuss. And you wanted to move along with this. You said you already knew this, but you don't. Mushahada, mushahada would be something that you experiment yourself. For example, in this case, you look at the Arabic language and you actually try to replicate it, and you will fail. This is the first way that you can do that. The third way is you to use mutawatirat, and this also gives certainty. And when you reach this level of mutawatirat, you do reach certainty about the second premise. And then obviously you do qiyas from both the premise and you reach the conclusion. And the conclusion is revelation. Simple as that. The issue here is that the reason that I was discussing this whole thing with you is because I do realize you're coming with a biased philosophical understanding of what logic is. It's a very biased understanding of what logic is, and it is a postmodern, not postmodern, but modern understanding of what logic is. Okay, everything can only be known if you go from A to B, then B to C. It's not necessary. You can
Hello,
jump
hello,
from A to C. Yeah, I can hear
hello.
you.
Oh, sorry, but I think there was some problem with my net. Okay, now I can hear you.
So you didn't hear me all that time?
No, I heard you up to the you made when you made the distinction that the, the
Okay.
layman has to come to this testimonies of reliable scholars, and the one who is what should we say technicalized in Arabic has to do this
Yeah.
make this challenge by themselves. Yeah, I hear up
Yeah.
to this point.
Yeah. So when what I'm saying that you're saying that you need to take testimonies, I'm saying testimony are not necessarily, what do you say, inductive. We can reach certainty by the way of testimonies. Okay, that's the first point.
How?
The second point, wait, hold on. The second point, and that is why in the first thing, and the second point is that mushahada, you can do the mushahada yourself, right? Or you can go the route of mutawatirat. You can go to the expert of the language and you can look at history. For example, I know Genghis Khan existed. I know Genghis Khan existed by the way of mutawatirat, by the way of testimony, and I know this by certainty. There is no doubt that Genghis Khan did not exist. Okay, there is no doubt that Genghis Khan did not exist. Okay,
No.
and this is the way of
So
mutawatir. This is the way of testimony. Okay,
when you're
and
talking about doubt and certainty, they are the very extremes of knowledge, right? When you have doubt about something, you doubt about its actual nature being true or false, or the actual source of it being true or false. The nature and the source of the justification are different things. Genghis Khan may have existed. It can really, it can be true. Genghis Khan may not exist. It can also be true. It can also be true, but they are not both true and false at the same time. But
No.
the
So wait,
way
hold on.
that the knowledge
I'm gonna ask
justification
you this.
came.
I want to ask you this because this
Okay,
is a
okay, yeah.
very unrealistic understanding of uh, rational sciences. Because this is
No,
it's a
no,
whole epistemological discussion
that
about the
no.
knowledge from testimony. I
That's
just
why,
want to
brother. I
ask.
actually asked you. I
No,
actually
I want to
asked
ask
you
you
in the
one thing.
beginning that
Does
less.
testimony does
Yeah,
testimony
yeah.
give you knowledge? I want to ask you this. Does testimony give you certain? Can testimony give you certain
It
knowledge
depends. It depends.
on what?
That the condition is that if now this condition can also be scrutinizable. This condition is also scrutinizable. Now I'm going to tell you how it is scrutinizable. Okay. The condition is wait a
Don't
little.
say scrutinizable. Just tell me can testimony give you certain knowledge? If it can, how? That's all I ask. Don't go on a tangent.
Okay, what do you mean by testimony?
Testimony. Someone told you something. Can you know it to be certain? By
Yeah. Okay. Can you
by
know?
not experiencing
By
by not
does the word?
experiencing
Okay.
itself.
Yeah. Does the word correspond to reality or not?
What the
Does the words of the one who is giving the testimony correspond to the reality or not?
does it cause? That's what I'm saying. Can you know
Uh,
the statement?
That's why there is a difference. That's why there is a reason I was distinguishing between these two factors. If someone was to tell me that he actually goes to the Mars every day, and he actually there is a house in the Mars in his a house he has in Mars, and he swims in Mars every day, and he comes back to every night, sorry, and he comes back the following night at the very first, at the very beginning of the morning. Now, do you really think? Let's say that guy is very reliable. He talks the truth every time, but at that moment he was actually. I don't know at that
Okay,
moment
good.
was lying or not.
Okay,
Would you
good.
believe that?
Now,
Would you believe his
now,
statement?
now, let's take someone like Hitler's existence. Do you know
Okay,
Hitler actually existed, or do you doubt it?
that was not my point.
No, that
That's
is
not
the
my point.
point.
No, 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 no.
Because you are
Okay,
conflating it.
no, no.
Wait, hold
I'm
on.
not
You're
saying
conflating.
that testimony is not reliable. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm not talking about
I'm
reliability.
saying that
I'm saying does
no,
it
no,
give certain
that's the
knowledge?
point what I was discussing, because that's the very thing you need to discuss when you're talking about the reliability or the truth value of testimonies. Is those testimonies about those things that represent those that words that represent those things reliable enough, or are those things believable
Perfect.
in that sense?
Perfect. Perfect. So you're saying that the testimonies need to be reliable. Then they can give you knowledge. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, not reliable in the sense that they are as reliable as in their personal character. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the words they use, are they corresponding to reality? Can I know by any chance that those words are actually corresponding to realities? But that doesn't necessarily mean that I will reject all testimonies.
Further,
There
I'm
can
asking
be
you a
testimonial fact about
very simple
history
question.
or
Further,
what
I'm
occurring,
asking you
right?
a very simple question, man. I don't know why you're
Yeah, yeah.
going on. Okay, let me rephrase it. Do you have anything that you know with certainty that you got to know from testimonies?
Again, I have to distinguish it. What do you mean by testimony in here?
That you did not experience yourself, rather, uh, you
No, I'm not
got it
certain.
through
Yeah,
someone
I
else.
got you. I got you. I'm not certain about this thing. Yeah.
So you're not certain about Darwin's existence. You're not certain about Hitler's existence. You're not even certain about your own
No,
grandmother's
no.
existence.
Look, certainty is different from knowledge.
No, it's not.
Certainty, no, no, no. Okay, okay. Let me clarify the distinction. Okay,
Okay,
when you say
define
you're
both things.
certain, okay, when you say you're certain about something, you do not have any other proposition that contradicts it. Possible contradiction, possible, because the knowledge is a contingent fact, and it can also be as because it's a contingent fact, it can be likewise false.
No, let me
Now,
explain to you
certainty
what
is
knowledge and
something that
certainty is.
you know for sure in here. Now,
Let me
if you define certainty in a different way, then our discussion may lead to somewhere else. There's no problem with that. But
no,
with
because
my
the way that you're
definition,
defining,
I'm sticking to
yeah,
this
it's your
definition here.
definition. It's your
Yeah,
definition.
no, you
It's
can
only
say
your
it's my
definition.
definition. There's no problem with that. So what? It's my definition.
It is only your definition. That's why I
Okay,
said
where
none
is
of
the
it is
problem?
very.
Where is the problem?
this is why metaphysics is very important, because your
Brother,
definition of certainty. This,
can you really say that there is a you can have a metaphysics of testimony? That
yes.
do you really think that that
Okay.
can be
For
pointed
example,
out?
for example,
Okay,
like for example, can you trust what I'm saying?
that's a different question. You're regressing from the point.
I'm no, I'm asking you, can you trust what I'm saying? No, I'm not saying that. Can you trust the statement I'm saying? Can you trust that you're actually talking to Brother Dawa? Do you know that with certainty?
Look, I'm not making a skeptical argument. You're
Farzan,
taking the
can
no no
you?
no. This
I ask you
you
something very
no you're
simple.
free. No
Because
no. This is
no,
not. Look,
Farzan,
if you
Farzan, I'm
say
asking you very simple. Just answer the question, please. Can you?
okay,
Do you actually know with certainty that you're talking to Brother Dawa?
what do you mean by talking to Balaji?
It could be you're talking to an AI or something, right?
Exactly. That's the very thing I was saying. You were implying that somehow I was implying skepticism that I was not.
Yeah,
I
but
am
that's the
not
point.
implying skepticism.
That's the
That's
point.
not the point, brother. That's not the point. I'm not implying
Further, stop
skepticism.
cutting me off.
I'm not. Oh,
Further, stop cutting me off. Okay, now it's annoying. Okay, okay, good. I'm gonna mute you. Yeah. So the problem with this is that you're not understanding that certainty can be reached by testimony. Why did I ask you this question? Can you? Why do I trust that I'm talking to a guy named Ferdin, or I'm not talking to a robot? Because this is how the system works. This is how StreamYard works. This is how YouTube works. This is how a normal individual talks. Okay, this is based on testimony. This is based on mutawatirat. This is not based on mushahada. This is not based on qiyas. This is not based on deductive reasoning. This is based on testimony. And yes, I do have I have yaqeen that I'm actually talking to Ferdin. I'm 100% sure I'm not talking to an alien. I'm 100% sure. There's no shadow of a doubt in me that I'm talking to an alien. Absolutely zero. The same way that if I saw someone came into my house and robbed my mobile, I wouldn't say that, oh no, a wind blew and there was a tornado and the mobile went out, because this is based on mutawatirat, a widely transmitted event. It's a way that how reality works. That's why I say that the approach that you're taking
wait.
is a
Are you
very
saying that the
modern and postmodern
reality
approach to
works?
logic.
Let me have some clarification in here. Are you saying that reality works by testimony of others?
No, that's not what I said.
Then
When did I say that?
what did you say? That's how reality works.
I said the reason that mutawatirat or widely transmitted reports or events give certainty is because
Okay, let me
of
give you an
how reality works.
actual counter argument. Actual. These are not made up arguments. Okay, these are not made up possible arguments. Even though it would not be wrong to give a possible argument, counter argument. Let me give an actual counter argument. Okay, in my
To what?
country, okay, I'm giving you. I'm giving you. In my
You're giving a
country, the
counter
people are
argument to what?
arguing from testimony. In my country, people
Okay.
actually believe now the testimony about the thing that is testified actually is also in many cases directly available to our senses, meaning we can sense it. But obviously the truth value of the argument comes from a testimony. Now
Okay.
they argue that you have some kind of creatures, like a metaphysical entity that lives in the tree. Okay, it goes by some many names in many different areas. So that lives in a tree, and the children's are frightened. They are said, are being frightened by the parents, that mainly girl children, female the children who are girls, they're frightened by their parents that don't go out. They will somehow get those girls and do something bad with them, the creatures. And that's widely transmitted. The truth value obviously is not accessible to us, but
Okay.
the claims,
Now,
maybe
perfect.
the
This is
thing which is
amazing.
presented.
This is amazing. Further, now,
Yeah. This was
exactly the
just a
point I'm
counter
making.
argument. I'm
Now,
not making any
this is not
point,
a
by the
counter
way. Yeah.
argument. This is actually supporting my point. This is actually supporting my point completely, because
Okay.
I'm
Show
gonna ask you
how
now.
is it presupporting the point.
You said that they believe in something superstitious and
Hmm?
fulan, but so many people say it, right?
No, no, they believe according to me is superstitious, not that they believe it is superstitious.
Okay, yes, I'm saying that according to you it is superstitious, and so many
Yeah, yeah,
people reported it. So it means that so many people's testimony can be false. That's basically what you're trying to say. Now,
yeah,
now
yeah,
let me change.
exactly.
Now let me change it a bit. Now let's
Okay.
say in the future, all the scientists in the world, all the scientists in the world, all the smartest
Hmm.
individual, everyone, regardless of religion,
Hmm.
regardless of background, everyone said that we actually did an experiment and found out that something like that actually exists. Would you believe it
Yeah, obviously, I would believe it.
with certainty?
If obviously there is no other proposition that contradicts it, and
Yeah,
obviously any other
exactly.
proposition is at least
That-
as
that's the
believable as
point.
this, then
That's
obviously
the
I
point.
would believe. No, no,
That's the
that's
point.
not the point. Because you're
That
making
is
a possible
exactly the point.
argument. No, no, no. You're
That's
making a
exactly.
possible argument. I can
No, you
also make
said
another
further.
thing. Look, again, I'm
Further.
making another
You
counter
said you
argument.
you would have
It
certainty.
can also
Further.
be true that scientists have found that this thing is false. This is a possible argument. You're not making
Yes.
anything, brother.
But further, I ask you that in the future, if all the scientists and all the experts came together, regardless of their background, let's say they came together and said that we did an experiment and this came was true, and they told you this, you said you would believe this with certainty, right? You
Yeah,
said it
yeah,
yourself.
obviously.
Okay,
Hmm.
this is the exact point I'm making. You trusted the testimony of experts; they're
No,
reliable.
no, I have
All of
not
them.
trusted the testimonies of the
Pardon,
expert. I would
pardon,
obviously hold them accountable for what they're saying. I would also
pardon.
see or try to see what they're saying in those statements when trying to prove that thing, that metaphysical entity.
Okay, so you're saying that you would try to do the experiment yourself.
No, I would obviously account them on how they concluded to this. What should I say?
Yeah,
This
they
how
would
they
tell you
concluded
that.
this experiment.
They would
No,
tell you that as
obviously
well.
they would tell me the procedure. They would not tell
Yeah, they would.
the truth value of the statement would not depend
Yes,
upon their words. That would
it
depend
would
upon the
because they're
procedure. I can
telling
I can
you.
also testify the procedure myself.
No, they're telling you the procedure. They're
Yeah,
telling you the
yeah.
procedure, and you're not doing the experiment yourself. They're telling you the procedure,
So
and
I
then
may do
you're
that process. I
trusting the
may do the
procedure.
procedure. How do you know I will not do it? I may do it. I may do the procedure myself. It may also be the case that I am among those scientists that was trying to what should I say experiment about this thing. It may also be
Okay.
true, right?
You do not have the technology. You do not have the gadgets to the experiment. Would you
That's a
still
different
believe in
question,
the
brother. That's
certainty?
different. We're
No, that's
talking
the
about
same.
possibilities. No,
No,
we are talking about possibilities. We're not talking about
pardon,
actualities in here.
pardon, pardon. I'm trying to go to the crux of the matter. I'm saying, would you still believe them with certainty if you were not able to do the experiment yourself? That's the point.
At that
Even if
time, certainty
Mhm.
would be conditional.
Certainty is not conditional.
Yes, it
Certainty
is
is
conditional. Okay,
certainty
let me
is
define. Let me define
further,
certainty. Okay,
further,
that would be
further.
better, brother.
Certainty either
Just
is or
let us
isn't.
have a no. That's not what certainty is. Certainty is not a matter of truth. Certainty is a matter of subjective appeal. It's what is certain to me is what is certain in my bundle of knowledge. Let me
Okay.
define. That's why I'm saying the definition is very important here. Certainty is, let's say for every proposition Q, obviously it's an affirmative proposition. Believing P is more justified for me than not believing P. And believing P and another proposition, which is another any proposition that is, let's say proposition A, B, C, D, is as or should I say certain, the very same word. Obviously, I'm not there cannot be any simple words to define the certainty. And another proposition A is at
That's
least
not
as
what certainty
justified
is.
for me to believe that proposition.
That's not what certainty is. But let's say you're defining it like, but that's not how people like. Basically, anyone in academia that I've
Look,
heard
I
this
don't want to make an
define
argument from authority.
certainty. That's fine if you're just defining certainty as such. That's your definition. That's fine. So what? How? What do you call something that is 100%? You know, with 100%.
That's why I said we actually assume anything to be true at the very first thing. We assume that our senses are working. And if someone tries to go against that, no problem. The same thing can be applied
No,
to their methodology.
Pardon,
When they're
pardon. I asked a
doubting
very
me,
simple question. Something
no,
that
no,
you
no.
know
I'm
with
saying,
100%.
no, no.
What do you call it?
I'm not going to look, brother. I'm not going to be specific in here. I'm saying that I'm just giving you generalities on from where we get certain, or in most cases. Obviously, I'm not going to say we are absolutely certain in this matter. Even sense data
Okay,
from
let me
our
ask you
senses
further.
are not absolutely
Further.
certain. They may be false
What
in
are you
many
certain
cases.
about? Okay, what are you 100% sure about? Let me,
Okay,
be
but
more clear.
it's relevant what I'm certain about. It's relevant.
What?
It's relevant what I'm 100% certain about.
I'm not able to understand what you're saying.
I'm saying it's actually relevant to our discussion what I'm certain about.
I'm saying what? Yeah, it is relevant because I want to
Okay,
know
how?
what are the
How?
what are the
How?
cri-
How it
what
is
are your
relevant?
what are your criteria? That's what I want to know. And
That's
I'm
why
going to show you the
exactly I
inconsistent.
said at the very beginning of our discussion, let's argue, let's approach this matter according to the law of logic and say that, okay, if there is a proposition P or a set of proposition P is
And
valid,
that is why.
if it's
And that is why.
contradictory, it
And
is impossible.
further, that's it. That's our discussion is good because that is why I said that this is flawed. I said that your approach is
Brother,
flawed. I said it in the very beginning. I said
bro,
logic is fun.
you can actually
First,
say it's flawed, but that doesn't necessarily make it flawed, right?
it does. I can show you why it's flawed.
How? Okay, show me.
Okay, define
Exactly,
logic.
very good. Show me.
Do one thing. Define logic.
Logic. I'm not going to. I haven't said actually we will go to by using logic. I'm saying we'll advance our discussion by adhering to the laws of logic. That's what I'm
If you're
saying.
not,
The
oh
laws of
wait,
logic. Yeah, the
what
laws
are
of
the laws?
logic are. Yeah. I'm
No,
saying
no,
the
no.
laws of
Define
logic
logic.
are.
I want
No,
you
no.
to define
I
logic
have
first
look. I
because first
no.
you'll
I
define
said
logic, then you will tell me what laws of logic
no.
are.
This is okay. I'm
If
good.
how,
I'm
okay,
look,
wait. What are the
brother. This is a
laws?
very simple definition. You cannot give definition for very simple things.
No, if you
Then
don't know what
I can no, no, then
logic is,
I can criticize
Further,
you on the basis of
further,
definition. Exactly. Yeah,
further.
I'm giving an ostensive definition. I'm pointing you out to what logic is. This is an abstract conception. This is not something that is empirically what should I say deducible. Now,
What
laws
is
of
logic
logic are
then?
as yeah, I'm
I'm
going.
not asking you
The
what
laws
laws
of
of logic are. I'm asking you what logic is.
I'm not going to define logic here.
Why you not? I'm asking you what logic is. I'm not
No,
asking you what
I'm
laws of logic
saying
are.
that look, whatever logic is defined as, those that very definition itself depends upon the law of logic.
I'm
So
asking you
you
what is
can
logic.
also say that is also
If
circular in that
what
sense, right?
what
The laws of
Yes,
logic, the
exactly.
logic
It's
is defined
circular.
by the laws of logic. And no, this is
No,
not
no.
circularity. This is look, there's a difference between vicious circularity and
Further,
there's a
stop
difference
running
between
away.
factual
Further,
circularity.
stop running away. Further,
Bro, I'm
very
not running
respectfully.
away. Where
Okay,
have
then
you seen me running
define
away?
logic. Define logic.
No, I'm not. Look, look. Okay,
Please define logic. This is not a hard question.
okay. Let me ask you a simple question. Do you think everything is definable?
Beside essence and existence, yes.
No. Wait, you are assuming many things. Do you ask me the question very simply? Do you think everything is replicable or not?
I'd answered it.
No. Look, you have assumed something. The truth value you have to then criticize that thing. How have you know that? What is that? How do you know what essence is? Then you would actually you have to circular reasoning because you have to already know what an essence is. You would be using definition to know what essence is. That is
That's what I'm saying.
presuming definition, but
I,
you have to actually say what is the very
that's why
what
I
is the
have
very
whole
limit of
listen,
definition.
further. That's why I have a whole metaphysical structure where essence and existences are at the very
And
basis.
that's why I
They are
don't
not
share this
definable.
structure, brother.
They are not. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's why your
Exactly.
worldview
You
or
have
your structure.
self-refuted yourself.
But that's what I'm
I have
saying.
said you the many things,
Further,
brother.
stop
Look,
making
I've
clips.
said that
Okay,
not
how did
everything.
okay. Further, I'm not gonna be respectful anymore. You're cutting me off way too much. Okay, how did I self contradict myself?
Okay, when I asked you that question, if can everything be definable, you said that depends upon what you are talking about. You said essence and existence. Then you talked about that's why you
No,
as
that's not
someone
even what I said.
doesn't define.
That's not what I
No.
said.
I'm going there.
No,
I'm going there. You
that's not
said
what I said.
that
What did I
that's why
say?
you
When
have
you
some
asked me,
metaphysical
when
postulates that
you
you
asked
cannot define.
further, I'm muting you. When you asked me, can you define everything? What did I say?
You said essence and existence.
No, that's not what I said. When you asked me, can you define everything? What did I say?
You said except essence and existence, you can define pretty much all things. That's what your argument was.
Okay. And how is this contradictory?
I have not said this is contradictory. That's why I was saying, let me clarify myself. I was saying that when you said, I said, okay, then I advanced from that point. I said, okay, but that depends upon another, that presupposes your very conclusion. Because essence and existence, let's get away with the existence. Essence depends upon definition. So
Oh my
now you
god.
have to
Oh
actually
my
know.
god. Oh my god. I'm gonna mute you because I need to explain something to you and the audience. This is why metaphysical structure Literally, this is why this book that I'm working on is so important. Oh my god. This is why a metaphysical structure is important. Logic, you to understand what when we say that essence and existence are the fundamentals of all rational endeavors, basically what we mean is that these are a priori. These are before experience and before nazar. In English, you say before the application of logic. This is before using the laws of logic to reach a conclusion. I know I exist before using the laws of logic. I know I have an essence before using the laws of logic. I know that the laws of logic are true before using the laws of logic. I don't use the laws of logic. I know that they are true a priori. This is similar to how a child knows that he needs to suckle his mother without reasoning. It is a priori. Similarly, further, when you say that everything needs to be proved by logic, that the reason that I'm asking you to define logic is if you're not defining it, okay? If you're not defining it in a posteriori manner, then you are misunderstanding laws of logic with logic. You're confusing these two things. Like, do you understand what I'm saying?
That's why. That's the very thing what I said in the beginning. I assumed laws of logic to be a priori, needing not to be proof of anything.
Okay. Now, can
That
you now?
my
I'm asking you a very
metaphysical
simple thing.
structure from
I'm asking you a
as
very
like
simple thing.
yours.
What is logic then?
Logic, defined as the most general thing, only points to the laws of logic. You can only say these are the laws, or this is the very thing that defines what logic is. If you say what logic is, I will point to these things only, and nothing else. And
I'll
what
define
in
it.
accordance with
Leave
this
it.
point,
Further, it's fine. Leave it. I'll define it, brother. It's fine. Respectfully, I'll just. I did it, by the way. I did it in this session. I defined logic.
look. I don't
Logic.
agree with the definition.
Logic. Wait, hold on. Further, what you said? You don't agree with the definition?
Yeah,
What was the definition that I gave?
you said the logic was the correct rules for inference.
Yes, that is what logic is.
Yeah,
Laws
exactly.
of
You
logic
can
is
say,
distinct from
look, now the
logic.
correct inference it assumes there is something true. That's the point. That's why I don't agree with this definition.
Logic is different from laws of logic. Laws of
Look,
logic,
I know that, brother. Look, I know that
yes,
because inference already
logic.
presumes that you know something to be true. That's why I don't agree with this definition.
Do you presume laws of logic to be true?
Look, that's the very thing what I said in the very beginning. I assume law of logic to be a priori,
No,
needing
do you
not to be
assume?
proved.
Do you know that
Yeah,
with
yeah,
certainty?
yeah.
Do you know
You
the
can
laws
say
of
that.
logic
Okay,
with
you can
certainty?
say that. Okay, you can say that I assume laws of logic to be a priori. You can say that. No problem. That's just a wording in different ways.
No. I'm asking a very simple thing. Do you know that laws of logic are true
What do you mean
with
by no?
100%?
What do you mean by no in here?
That they cannot be false. They correspond with reality.
That's circular reasoning. That's not. That's just negating the double negating. What do you mean? What is the definition of knowledge here?
I'm asking a very simple thing.
No, no, brother.
Laws of
This is not
logic.
very. This is actually very complicated. When you say
Laws of
laws
logic.
of program, okay, laws of logic are. Okay, I'm saying I can say the laws of logic. Laws of logic
Do
are
they
the
correspond with
law of
reality
identity,
or they don't?
the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, and the law of excluded middle. Yeah, there's the law. That's the three basic laws of logic.
Can they be false or not?
No, they cannot be false.
How do you know that?
That's why I said, what do you mean by no? That's why I say I assume they're a priori. How can you know? Because if you say by knowing that you need some justification and it needs to be truth, this all of these words all also presuppose many other things. And those very things inherently presuppose the laws of logic. That's why I said laws of knowledge logic doesn't have to be proved. Everything already presumes laws of logic. How can you prove that very thing by anything other than it?
Good. Good. Now, you need to understand very this precise thing. There are other things that we can know with certainty based on not only these laws of logic, but also the way that we are certain about these laws of logic. This is what you're not able to distinguish, and this is the issue with many postmodern
Okay,
thinkers.
how? Okay, no
Very
problem.
sim-
How? You have
for
just
example,
claimed something. Now you have to prove.
for
Yeah.
example, yeah, I'm gonna um, substantiate my claim. For example,
Okay,
I
okay,
know
no
my
problem.
own existence. I know my own existence. Okay,
Brother,
I know.
this is a skeptical argument. You cannot give
Farther,
this kind of basic arguments to prove
farther,
your point.
farther. You're making a claim that I cannot. Why can I not? Please give me a syllogism why I cannot. You don't even know what
I don't
logic is.
have
You
look,
don't even know why
look,
this. You're saying I
look,
cannot. Wait,
look.
farther. You said I cannot.
Yeah,
Why
I'm
can I
saying
not?
okay. I'm
Please give
going
me an
there.
argument.
Okay, I'm going there. When I was saying your example doesn't work. The reason I said that because you are giving an analogy to what you're trying to prove. I'm not saying that you don't have you cannot be certain that you exist or not. That was not my point. I was not doubting that. I was saying that you are giving an analogy that like myself, like I know I exist and it cannot be false. Similarly, I know that testimonies are true and it cannot be false. This is an analogy. That I was attacking
This
the
is not
analogy. I
an
was not attacking.
analogy. This is not an analogy. This is not what an analogy is.
My lord, then what is this?
You do not, man. That's
Okay,
it.
I don't know. That's
Um,
fine. Okay, I don't know. Teach me.
uh, I'm muting you. Analogy, okay? Analogy does not mean what you just said it is. Analogy means you take one thing that is true in another, and you can and it necessarily implies another thing, and then you look at the other thing that also necessarily implies another thing. Okay, so two things imply two other things due to the same similarity within the both the things. This is what analogy means. Okay, I
Are
am not
those
making it.
similarities identical?
Man, please don't cut me off. I'm gonna kick you. If you cut me off one more time, I'm gonna kick you, man. Okay, so this is what analogy is. What I am doing is I am showing you that you're saying that show me Islam is true solely on the three laws of logic. You said the laws of logic. I'm saying I will, but it is not only merely on those laws of logic, but entirety of what logic is. Logic is not merely the laws itself. Logic is inference from these laws, and also its principle, where it came from. How do you know these things are true? That whole thing is logic. So when I'm saying that, I conclude that the way that we can, there are multiple ways that we can know things with certainty, not merely on the laws of logic. Yes, they're definitely based on the laws of logic, but the laws of logic branch out in many things. The laws of logic branch out in mushahada. For example, I know what I see. For example, if someone punches me, I feel pain. I know with certainty I feel pain. I did not use laws of logic to conclude this, but I know that this, my belief or in this knowledge of pain that I have, is logical, because the certainty is a priori in a sense. It is without reasoning. It is um, it is isbat bil qalb bila dalil. Pure intelligible is also the same way. Okay,
Can I speak,
revelation.
brother?
Someone can, no, you cannot, because I'm saying something. Revelation is also the same way. Okay, mutawatirat are also the same way. When you say that, please just show me. Wait, give me a second. Go ahead, James. What is your question? Just let me know. Also, let me know your religion and your background, and I'll take you, because I've been talking to this guy uh, for a while. So yeah. So Farden, when I say that
Brother,
laws of logic, laws of, when you say just give me something based on laws of logic, I'm just telling you, I'll
no,
give
no,
you
no. The
something based on
exposition
entire
that you
logic
just gave,
itself.
the exposition that you just gave, I don't disagree with this.
Hmm.
That's why what I said in the beginning that when you argue
Yes,
from the law of logic,
if you're
you
saying that
have
you don't
some.
disagree with this, testimony
No, no,
can
no.
give certainty.
Let me. No. Testimony. There's the problem here. Now we are going to something else. Testimony, which is obviously not certain. Now let me clarify why I have made an
Okay, you said
assertion. Right
it's
now, let me
obviously not
clarify.
certain. Yes, please.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let me clarify my assertion. What I said in accordance with law of logic, I meant that you have the three laws, right? identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. So let's say you have a proposition P. Let's not care about the proposition being universal or particular. Let's say it's a proposition P, and its non-contradiction would be non-P. No, sorry, non-P. Now, if I prove that all of the non-P's are impossible, then it necessarily implies that P is obviously true. I've said that's exactly why I said, can you prove Islam truth in this way? Can you prove all of the other alternatives to be necessarily false? Can you prove that? Can you follow? Can you prove that? I actually didn't disagree with you from this point that law of logic branch out. I agree with you, law of logic branch out. It's not just some abstract thing only present in our what should I say mind, or we're assuming when arguing with it. I'm saying, can you necessarily what should I say implies some conclusion that Islam is true from this law of logic. Like when you say, like the Kalam cosmology argument, everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. When you say the universe began to exist, you show that universe being eternal is impossible. This infinite regression of causation is impossible. An infinite regression of causation, in order to pass that causation, you cannot pass it. That's how we prove from an impossibility. The proposition P and its contradiction, not P, is impossible. That's how we necessarily imply that P is necessary. The Kalam cosmological argument is in this way necessary, and that's exactly how what I was saying. Can you prove in this way that Islam is true?
Yes, and this is
By the way, I'm a Muslim.
exactly
I'm not saying I'm not a Muslim. I'm a
yeah,
Muslim,
that's
but
what I'm saying.
I'm exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Mo. When we say that, that's why I said the ijad al-Quran is done in two ways. It can be done in mushahada. That the in ijad al-Quran, the argument itself is qiyas, it is analogy. It is the same thing that the Kalam cosmological argument is. It is the same thing. It is a
The
qiyas,
popo, I'm going to break the popo on the.
right? It is exactly the same thing. It is qiyas. Now, uh, the premises can be substantiated. The only difference is that one of the premise of the Kalam cosmological argument is pure intelligible, and the other you can say is mushahada. Okay, other is mushahada. The premise of the ijad al-Quran can be substantiated with mutawatir and mushahada. That's the only difference. That is the only difference. But the argument itself still remains a analogy or qiyas or a
Brother,
deductive
can
argument, you
you
can say.
can you use the English terms for mushahada, whatever? I don't actually know the Arabic
So
counterparts.
basically, brother, what? Okay. So basically, and I want to take other colors, and I want to give a small speech as well now. Basically, what mushahada means is you experiment or you do it yourself or you experience it yourself. For example, when I say it is an ijad al-Quran, you study the Arabic language and you try to replicate it, and then you'll see that it is impossible because you know the
Bro,
how to do it.
I
Okay.
tried to be
Yes.
Newton, but I failed to be Newton, right? I tried, to be like Isaac Newton. I tried to be like, Aristotle. I failed, now to be Aristotle. Now, does that, from that inference, can I, somehow
Yeah,
get to
that's
the fact
completely
that
something.
Newton?
That's completely something
No, I'm,
else.
I'm drawing an exact inference. The very,
No, that's
very,
completely
what
something
should I
else.
say?
I already in the beginning of the discussion I said that the argument is not that you will be able to do the work of Shakespeare, you'll be able to do the work of Allama Iqbal. I actually gave the exact words that I used. I said that it is a pattern that is replicable in a language and should be replicable. You don't need to be a rocket scientist of the Arabic language to know that it is inimitable. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. Okay, you just need to know that. For example, I'm not a rocket scientist. A lot of time I cannot even read a lot of books in Arabic because they're like philosophical books and stuff like that. But even I can see the inimitability in many sense, right? Like for example, like I keep giving these example of Surah, uh, not Surah Ikhlas, Surah Al Kawthar, right? So this is the personal experience that a person himself can do. The other is mutawatirat. Mutawatirat do give certainty, do give yaqeen, okay? But their yaqeen, they do give yaqeen. So for example, you ask the experts in the Arabic language from around the background of whoever, right? And you see what to say. And this is mutawatir. This can give certainty depending if they're reliable. So
Brother,
this
I have
is
a
for them.
question.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. let's say, for the sake of argument, there is this guy who is extremely, extremely knowledgeable in Arabic language, okay, and still, can he? Is it impossible for him, to fail in meeting the challenge? Is it impossible for him to fail in meeting the challenge?
Is it impossible for him to fail?
To fail, because if he were to succeed, then obviously he had already replicated the
Yes,
genre like the Quran. But that's
yes,
not my argument.
because
Can he?
that's what
Is
I'm
it
saying. Yes,
impossible?
because it is the nature. See, that's the exact thing. You're thinking that the challenge is a extremely difficult challenge by its expert. You need to be a genius. That's where you're misunderstanding this. You don't need to be a genius in the sense that, oh, it's something so out of this world. Like the issue arises is because of its very nature. So, for example, if like that's why I gave in the starting, I gave the example of an ice cream machine. An ice cream machine is not something that is out of this world or crazy, right? But if the ice cream machine starts to give us ice cream of gold, and then you have the blueprint, you have the raw material, you open up the machine and you try to replicate it, and you're not able to, then it doesn't make sense. You cannot naturally explain it, even though there's nothing in the ice cream machine itself that you're not able to do. Similarly, the Arabic linguists are in the sense in the same position, and you can reach this position yourself if you study the Arabic language. So this is why it remains still a qiyas. It remains a deductive argument. It has not reached the argument. For example, it's still a in the same way the kalam cosmological argument. Um, and by the way, this thing that I'm showing you on the screen is by Imam al-Ghazali himself, the author of the kalam cosmological argument.
Look. I don't think at first. I don't think the kalam is a sound argument in the first place. Secondly, the thing that you've said right now about the Quran, about the ice cream machine example. Now, my question is that how did you know that the ice cream machine doesn't give you gold ice cream instead of giving you normal, a natural flavored chocolate or strawberry or whatever the flavor ice cream is? How do you know that?
What? I'm sorry, what?
How do you actually know that the ice cream machine doesn't give you gold ice cream and gives you, let's say chocolate and strawberry ice cream? What is natural in this sense? So the example you gave by extraordinary, that ice cream machine giving you
It's very
gold.
simple
How did
because
you know
you
it
can
was extraordinary?
because you know how the ice cream machine works. You can literally see it. You can do the mushahada, right? You can do the mushahada. You can experience how the ice cream machine works, and then you, sorry, then you know how the mechanism works, and you know that the ice cream machine should give out ice cream. If the ice cream machine is giving out gold, you're not able to naturally explain it. It goes beyond it goes beyond your mushahada.
No, no,
You're conflating two things. Let me explain. You're
it
conflating two
doesn't
things.
go beyond
I,
mushahada. Right?
it does. If the ice cream machine if the ice
Okay,
cream machine gives
let me
gold, it
clarify.
goes beyond mushahada.
Okay, let me clarify. By mushahada, you mean, already observed things, right? Right?
What you are observing and what you know from
Yeah, exactly.
observation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from my observation, I've never seen an ice cream machine giving, out, let's say gold ice cream, right?
Mhm.
But if it were my observation that an ice cream machine were to give me gold ice cream, then I would not actually have this extraordinary belief. It
Mm.
just shows that it was my
Perfect.
subjective appeal. It was a subjective appeal that,
Okay.
I somehow
Okay.
felt it was
Yeah. And
extraordinary.
this is
I
exactly
just
what I
didn't
mean.
knew the causal antecedent and nothing
And
else.
this is exactly what I mean when I say it is not naturalistically explainable. This is why in the whole argument I say the word naturalistically
So
explainable.
how
I
do you
don't
know it's
say
not naturally available? Have you seen all of the natural, what should I say, exceptions of
okay,
conclusions?
perfect. Uh, Fardin, what is nature?
What do you mean by nature?
That's what I'm asking you. You're saying that
Okay.
how do you know that experience and fulan. I'm asking you what is nature? And how do you define a miracle?
I don't know how to define a miracle. That's the first thing.
Exactly.
But
Then
if you
you
were to
should have
tell me
asked
about
that.
nature, if you were to tell me about
Nature,
nature,
so there are
naturally
three things.
is
Three things that
assumed
are
to have
that,
causal chains in nature, but that's not necessary. That's not
yes,
necessary.
we don't hold it to be necessary.
Then
We
yeah, that's
Muslims don't hold
then
it to
how
be necessary.
exactly? Then how do you know it cannot be non-natural? The way you define natural nature,
That's the
then
thing.
then
Yeah, exactly. The nature, right? Nature is something. It goes back to the initial point. It has to do with mushahada, and it has to do with mutawatirat, and has to do with the pure intelligibles. Nature, or what is natural. See, there are three kind of pure intelligibles in this term: natural impossibility, logical impossibility, right? What do we mean by these? Natural impossibility and logical. I'm not saying that a that, for example, if a man were to start flying, not flying, for example, a man touched everything and it turned to gold.
mhm.
Okay, I would call this a miracle. Why would I call this a miracle? Because it's very simple. It is extremely simple. Because this it goes beyond naturalistic explanation. What do we mean by
Do you know?
naturalistic
Do you need?
explanation?
Or do you know all naturalistic expression?
Let me see. If you don't know what nature is, if you don't know what nature is, then you cannot even make that claim. You know all naturalistic. Let
Brother,
me explain. I'm
how
explaining
can I
something.
claim something that I don't obviously don't know about? I don't
See,
obviously know about the whole of nature. I mean,
no,
if you just
no.
say for the sake of argument,
You
nature
you
means
you are
whole of the universe.
misunderstanding. You're misunderstanding what naturalistic explanation even means.
Okay, okay, tell me, no problem.
Okay, when we say naturalistically explainable, okay, there are so two different things: logically explainable, naturalistically explainable, logically impossible, naturalistically impossible. We
Yeah.
Muslims and logicians, philosophers, everyone agrees there is no such thing as logical impossibility. Okay.
Yeah.
First. Then there are groups of like materialists who say logical impossibility and naturalistic impossibility are the same thing. We don't say this. So, for example, like Imam al-Ghazali himself, he
Neither
said
do
that
I.
what?
I mean, neither do I say, materialistic impossibilities or natural impossibilities are actually impossible. I don't say that.
I'm not saying you say that. I'm just saying the people say that.
Okay.
So, so what happens is that we are not claiming in this argument that I cannot. It is logically impossible that the Quran should be replicable and is not replicable. I'm saying it is naturalistically impossible, meaning it goes beyond naturalistic explanation. It goes beyond the laws of nature. Now, what are the laws of nature? Okay, what are the laws of nature? Now, this is the very good question. This is a very good question. Should be the precise question. This goes precisely back to this diagram. To know what are the laws of nature, we need to have a certain understanding of metaphysics. Without the understanding of metaphysics, you cannot define nature. You cannot define nature.
How is it?
Okay, for example, if your metaphysics, I'm not saying I'm saying that if someone's metaphysics is
Mhm.
naturalistic, or his metaphysics is physics, it's identical. For him, the basis of all reality is material. Then for him, logical impossibility and material impossibility are the same thing, right?
No, let's say he doesn't know that. Let's say there can be many one that doesn't actually conclusively claim anything about the nature. They say that we have a very, very extremely low limited sense of, observation, and we cannot claim conclusively from this set of induction. So we are just
Listen,
waiting for, more observation.
listen,
He doesn't
listen.
necessarily claim that
Further,
the nature is
further,
naturalistic or metaphysical
further.
in nature.
We are not claiming when we. But what are miracles? Miracles are when we say naturalistically impossible. We are affirming that this is not universal. We are affirming that it can be the case that something else happens. We are affirming that. And for example, when we throw a ball, it goes down. If I were to leave a ball and it goes up, you would say, or gravity turns upside down, you would say this contradicts nature. But we're not saying that it is impossible or logically impossible. It can happen. But when it does happen, we say it is a miracle. Why is it a miracle? We need to
No,
understand
I agree
we
with
need
you.
to have
I agree with
metaphysics.
you.
Exactly. We need to
I
understand
agree.
on metaphysics. And
I
for
agree
that,
with you on
we
the
need
logical point. Logical part. There is not. We're not saying that it's logically impossible, but I don't agree with you in the naturalistic part. When you say, given the laws of nature is impossible, That's the problem. How do you know all of the laws of nature? You don't necessarily know all of the laws of nature. You haven't
We
observed everything. So when you
we
are
know.
saying it's naturally not possible, you're implying that you have actually schemed out all of the natural laws.
No, we're not. That is
Exactly.
why
Then how can you
that is.
claim conclusively?
I'm
Then
saying
that's
we
not
aren't.
naturally
We
possible.
aren't. When we are saying
Then
it is
how
that,
does your premise what
listen,
should I say
listen,
comes to the conclusion
listen
and
further.
deductive
When
conclusion?
we say something is naturalistically impossible, we need to understand what nature is. You need to understand what nature is, and for that we need to have a metaphysical basis. I'm just gonna
You're just jumping into
I'm trying to go,
categories.
and because I'm trying to go to a next caller, I'm gonna explain it very briefly, okay? And inshallah ta'ala, I'll go again live in tomorrow, day after tomorrow, then you can come there as well, okay? So
Okay.
when we say metaphysics, so for example, for the Aristotelians, or not Aristotelian but other kind of philosophers, even Christians, they would define it in a similar way. They would say that the God is the creator. So we would use the Kalam cosmological argument or the contingency argument to prove that God is the creator. Okay? And God creates in a habit. There's a certain pattern to God's creation. There's a certain pattern to God's creation. Okay? And when this pattern is broken, okay, when this pattern is broken, we call it a miracle. We are not even claiming that this pattern cannot be broken. That materialists claim that. We, as logicians, do not claim that. We say that the pattern can be broken. We are not saying that in some other place in the universe the pattern is not being broken. We're not saying that. We're saying that the pattern can be broken, but there is a pattern. There is
No, yeah,
definitely a pattern.
absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and when this
There is
pattern is broken, it goes against this
no,
the
no,
natural
no.
nature.
That's
For
my
example,
problem. There is
Imam
my
al-Ghazali,
problem. When
pardon
that
me,
is broken,
I'm not done.
when you say the
Pardon,
term when that is
pardon,
broken, how did
I'm
you
leaving
know
it.
it's broken?
Okay. So the how Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, he explains it. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's an adat to his creation. Okay, there's a habit to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and we can know this by mushahada, we can know this by many other reasoning. Okay, there's a habit. When
Brother,
this
I
habit,
want to have an interactive discussion.
wait, I'm explaining something and you cannot cut me off. By the way, I said if you cut me off, I would kick you. Okay, so mushahada, this experience, sorry, we know this habit, and you're saying that, and then if this habit is contradicted, how do we know it's a miracle? This is how we're defining it as. This is how we're defining it. This is how we're defining nature, and this is how it is defined. This is how nature is defined, and this is how this is how the miracle is defined. The way that we define nature implies how we define miracle. So it's simple as that. So give some
Now, can I
final
say
words, and
something?
yeah, go ahead. Then I need to move
Let's
to another
say,
topic.
okay, let's say you define something. Okay, let's say I define, unicorn as something. Now, does that
Sure.
really mean that unicorn exists physically?
Perfect. Perfect.
Physically, not metaphysically, not
Perfect.
logically, physically.
Perfect. Perfect. My definition is substantiated. When I That's why I said I will prove my
Eh,
metaphysics. Then my
that's
metaphysics
exactly,
will
brother.
imply.
Have you seen? I was actually talking to you, talking to you at that point when you said that's how observe nature behaves. I said, how do you know that it behaves in that way? How
Mushahada.
no,
It's
exactly your
mushahada.
mushahada, your sense of your observation is limited. Have you observed everything? That's my
I'm not.
question. Have you observed everything? And how can you conclude? How can you conclude that nature behaves in this certain way? You know some causal chains in nature, very few, obviously. You don't know all of them, and now you're claiming conclusively in a deductive sense that this is how nature works. And if X goes against this, then obviously that's miraculous.
This is what you're
That's
confusing. This is what you're
no, no, I'm
confusing.
not confusing anything.
You're exactly confusing something. Let me tell you what you're
Okay, okay, tell
confusing.
me.
The
Okay,
way that we are defining nature is the habit of God. How
brother,
God
that's the
does
circular
something.
reasoning I was pointing out again and again.
Farthen. When I say the habit of God, for example, when I drop a ball, it goes down. When I drop a ball, it goes down. This
Okay,
is the
brother,
habit of
if
God. This is,
is
I
the
know with
argument in
certainty.
this way, okay, brother,
Listen,
is the
farthen.
argument in this
Don't,
way?
don't cut me off. No, I mean, you're cutting me off too much. Listen. When we say the habit of God, okay, when we say it is the habit of God, we are necessarily implying that this is what God does again and again. We are not saying this is what God will always do. We never made that claim. We are exactly saying God, if He wants, He can break this habit. It is the naturalist or the physicist, the materialist who say this, that God will all or it'll keep happening. We are not saying that. We're saying this is the habit of God. We know this is what God does. And then if it goes the other way, we'll call it a miracle. It is exactly, and Imam al-Ghazali rahimullah gives a perfect analogy, you can say. He says that, for example, let's take an example, that there's a king who's sitting on his throne and there's a lot of people in front of him. Okay, and I'll sprinkle a little bit of salt on this. And then one of the guy comes to you and you're seeing the king, and one of the guy, like he's famous king, like think of like in today's world, think of someone uh like Putin or something. Okay, I don't know, and he's sitting on his throne or something, and then a messenger comes to you and he says that I am from him, I came from Putin, and he is calling you, and he's saying come to me or do this or whatever. And then you say, okay, what's your evidence? Putin gets up, he waves at you, and he does a backflip. Okay, or rather, he waves at you, and then the messenger says, now he's gonna do a backflip, and he does a backflip. Never something like that happened. Your mind is blown. You say this is something unnatural. This is what you say, and this is exactly what we mean. This God's habit have a nature to it, and when God goes against His nature, a miracle comes forth. A miracle happens. Simple as that. Okay, next caller, Kashif, Heaven Seeker.
Um, can I talk in Hindi?
Sure. बोलो बोलो.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम ब्रदर दावा भाई, कैसे हैं आप?
वालेकुम अस्सलाम.
ब्रदर दावा भाई, मुझे आपसे ये जानना था कि अभी आप थोड़ी देर पहले आप आर्गुमेंट दे रहे थे फ्रॉम कंटिंजेंसी एंड नेसेसरी बीइंग, राइट?
अभी तो मैंने नहीं दी.
नहीं मतलब आपने दी थी ना, मतलब आई मे बी मिस्टेकन, बट आपने किसी ना किसी डिबेट में ये आर्गुमेंट दी थी, राइट? कॉजेशन की या कंटिंजेंसी की, राइट?
हाँ दी थी.
तो ब्रदर दावा, ये मेरा आपसे ये सवाल है दैट आई एम सीकर ऑफ ट्रूथ. ओके, मेरा कोई सर्टेन पोजीशन नहीं है, मैं अभी भी पढ़ रहा हूँ एंड जानना चाह रहा हूँ व्हाट्स द ट्रूथ, व्हिच रिलीजन इज ट्रू, कोई रिलीजन ट्रू है कि भी नहीं. तो मेरा ये आपसे क्वेश्चन है कि जो कॉजेशन का जो आर्गुमेंट है, इजंट इट एंटी इस्लामिक? क्योंकि एक हदीस आती है हमारे पास सही अल बुखारी की 3276. ओके, डोंट लाफ. ओके, so उसमें कहते हैं, Allah's messenger said, Satan comes to one of you and says, whoever created so and so, till he says, who has created your Lord? So when he inspires such a question, one should seek refuge with Allah and give up such thoughts. तो इसमें तो ये सब कंटिंजेंसी कॉजेशन वाले आर्गुमेंट्स को एकदम भूल जाने की बात की गई है. इसमें तो ऐसा कहा नहीं गया है कि,
इसमें ऐसा कुछ नहीं कहा गया.
देखें आप स्क्रीन शेयर करें, आप देखें ये वाली आर्गुमेंट
नहीं
बुखारी की.
नहीं, आप बात तो सुनो. आप एक दफा मुझे कंटिजेंसी आर्गुमेंट बता दो बस. इसमें बता दो कहाँ हम क्वेश्चन कर रहे हैं कि गॉड को किसने बनाया. हम कभी क्वेश्चन ही नहीं करते उसमें. आप एक दफा कंटिजेंसी आर्गुमेंट से बता दो.
फर्स्ट कॉज आर्गुमेंट बोल रहा था, सॉरी रॉन्ग, बट कंटिजेंसी फर्स्ट कॉज आर्गुमेंट बोल रहा था.
फर्स्ट कॉज आर्गुमेंट भी बता दो.
A first cause argument that anything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe begins to exist, so it has a cause, and it's the first cause, and it's God, right? See?
Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe has a cause. ठीक है, conclusion क्या है?
कि the universe has a cause, and infinite regress is not possible. Hence, that cause is God, right? यही था ना?
ऐसे आर्गुमेंट ऐसे तो नहीं है, लेकिन इसमें गॉड के ऊपर हम क्वेश्चन कब कर रहे हैं कि गॉड को किसने बनाया. ये तो कभी क्वेश्चन ही नहीं आया. हम तो एक कंक्लूड कर रहे हैं कि गॉड को किसी ने नहीं बनाया. हम क्वेश्चन ही नहीं कर रहे गॉड को किसने बनाया. हम तो बिल्कुल एक न्यूट्रल पोजीशन से सोच रहे हैं, फिर कंक्लूजन तक पहुंच रहे हैं. भाई एक बीइंग है जिसको किसी ने नहीं बनाया. हम ये सवाल ही नहीं कर रहे भाई खुदा को किसने बनाया. बिल्कुल उलट चीज है, सिंपल सी चीज है.
सर्टेन लोग ये सवाल करते हैं कि गॉड को किसने बनाया, राइट? सो इसके ऊपर आप इस्लामिक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बुखारी की 276 حدیث کے اکارڈنگ آپ یہ نہیں کہہ سکتے ہیں کہ انفائنائٹ ریگریس از ناٹ پاسبل گیونگ سرٹن ایگزامپل ہیز گاڈ, کیونکہ یہ جو حدیث ہے یہ کلیئرلی پروہیبٹ کر رہی ہے یہ سب باتیں کہنے سے, بول رہی ہے دیٹ اٹس دا وسپر آف سیٹن, اوکے, اینڈ یہ آپ کو باتیں یہ سب تھاٹس کے اوپر گیو اپ کر دینا ہے. سو وائی ڈو یو گائز آلویز یوز کازیشن آرگیومنٹ, میں
سمپل
مطلب
سی
جاننا
بات
چاہ رہا ہوں.
اس حدیث سے حرام ثابت نہیں ہوا. اس حدیث سے وہ بندے کے لیے جو ہے ہی شوڈ سیک ریفیوج. اس کا مطلب یہ نہیں ہے کہ ہم کسی کو جواب نہیں دے سکتے. فار ایگزامپل اگر کوئی نان مسلم پوچھے, بھائی نان مسلم تو خدا پر یقین نہیں کرتا, اللہ کو تو مانتا ہی نہیں ہے, وہ تو شیطان کو بھی نہیں مانتا, وہ کس سے ریفیوج سیکھ کرے گا؟ اس کو میں یہ بولوں گا بھائی بولو بھائی اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم پڑھو. بھائی کرسچن ہے وہ آگے والا کیا بولتے ہیں ایتھیسٹ ہے, میں اس کو یہ بولوں گا؟ obviously نہیں بولوں گا. میں اس کو بولوں گا بھائی سمپل سی بات ہے, آپ بولے who created God, ہم بھائی ڈیفائن کر دیتے ہیں God is the being who created everything. سمپل سی بات ہے,
اوکے,
اس پہ کوئی کانٹرڈکشن نہیں ہے, کوئی بھی
نہیں لیکن
کانٹرڈکشن.
then you give example of infinite regress and then say that it's not possible, right? پھر آپ کچھ certain examples دیتے ہیں کہ لائبریری کے آگے انفائنائٹ نمبر آف لوگ رہیں گے, دین آپ اس لائبریری کے اندر نہیں جا سکتے ہیں. سو میرا یہ سوال ہے کہ یہ سب ایگزامپل دینا جائز ہے کیا؟ کیونکہ یہ جو کازیشن
ہاں
کا
بالکل
آرگیومنٹ
جائز
ہے,
ہے, بالکل جائز ہے.
بٹ یہ جو
اس میں
کازیشن کا جو
حرمت
آرگیومنٹ
حرمت ثابت نہیں ہو رہی. بھائی سنو, حدیث میں حرمت پہلے ثابت نہیں ہو رہی. حدیث میں جو لوگوں کو یہ سوال آ رہا ہے ان کو بولا ہے سیک ریفیوج, اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ سے ریفیوج سیک کرو. جو بندے اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ کا وجود ثابت کرنا چاہ رہے ہیں ان کے لیے وجود ثابت کرنے کے لیے تو حرمت تھوڑی ثابت ہے, حرام ان کے لیے تھوڑی ہے, بلکہ قرآن تو اس کی سپورٹ کرتا ہے. قرآن بولتا ہے بھائی کہ تم لوگ خود بنائے گئے, کیا تم لوگ نے اپنے خلقت کی ہے یا تم لوگ کچھ نہیں تھے اور خلقت ہو گئی؟ were you created from nothing or did you create your own self? قرآن یہ بولتا ہے. یہی تو کلام کاسمولوجیکل آرگیومنٹ میں ہم لوگ پہلا پریمس میں یہی تو آرگیومنٹ کرتے ہیں کہ everything that begins to exist has a cause. ہم اس کی ریزننگ کیا دیتے ہیں کہ بھائی کوئی چیز اپنے آپ کو بنا نہیں سکتی اور نہ ہی کوئی چیز عدم سے وجود میں آ سکتی ہے, ہم یہی تو ریزننگ دیتے ہیں. پھر کیا بولتے ہیں, قرآن بولتا ہے ان فی خلق السماوات والارض واختلاف اللیل والنہار لآیات لأولی الالباب. یا دوسرا پریمس ہے کہ یونیورس ایٹرنل نہیں ہو سکتی. ہم کیوں بولتے ہیں ایٹرنل نہیں ہو سکتی؟ کیونکہ بھائی ایونٹس ہوتے ہیں, چینجز ہوتے رہتے ہیں. اگر چینجز ہوتے رہتے ہیں تو انفینٹ چینجز نہیں ہو سکتے, انفینٹ ایونٹس نہیں ہو سکتے. اگر انفینٹ ایونٹس ہوں گے تو بھائی ایسا پاسبل نہیں ہے, پھر آج کا ایونٹ نہیں ہوتا. تو یہی تو بھائی اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ آیت پہ کیا بتا رہے ہیں, ان فی خلق السماوات واختلاف اللیل والنہار لآیات لأولی الالباب. یہ ایویڈنس ہے ان کے لیے جو اولی الالباب ہے. اولی الالباب کون ہوتے ہیں؟ اولی الالباب عقل کو انتہائی اعلیٰ درجے پہ استعمال کرنے والے لوگوں کو کے لیے استعمال کیا جاتا ہے. اولی الالباب ریزننگ کی ڈیپتھ میں جانے والے لوگوں کو, ٹھیک ہے, وہ انگلیاں کرنے والے لوگوں کے لیے, مطلب پراپر ریزننگ وزڈم والے لوگوں کے لیے اولی الالباب. تو یہ تو قرآن اس کو پروموٹ کر رہا ہے. یہ آپ پہلے بندے ہو گئے, کیونکہ جو ہمارے پاس جو اسکالرز ہیں, امام الغزالی جن کی آرگیومنٹ ہے کلام کاسمولوجیکل آرگیومنٹ, جنہوں نے یہ فارمولیشن دی ہے, وہ ان کو حدیث پتا تھی, ان کو قرآن بھی پتا تھا, بہت بڑے عالم تھے, انہوں نے آرگیومنٹ دیا. سو یو آر دی فرسٹ ون ہو ہیز ایکچولی said something like that.
نہیں
تو اس کا
حدیث میں لکھا ہوا
سمپل سا جواب یہ ہے.
ٹھیک ہے. اینڈ سیکنڈ
حدیث
کوشچن
میں نے,
میری یہ ہے
ہاں ٹھیک ہے,
جی,
سیکنڈ کوسچن, ہاں پوچھو سیکنڈ کوسچن.
سیکنڈ کوشچن میرا یہ, اس کو تھوڑا سا مطلب سیریس کنسیڈریشن میں آپ لیجیے گا, اینڈ ڈونٹ جسٹ گیو اٹ لائٹلی, اوکے. آئی مائی سیلف از اے مسلم اینڈ ٹروتھ سیکر, اوکے. تو میرا آپ سے یہ سوال ہے کہ جو چیپٹر نمبر 9 ہے قرآن کی, سورہ التوبہ, اس کی جو لاسٹ 2 ورسز ہے, رائٹ, 9:1-8 اینڈ 9:1-9, رائٹ, وہی نا لاسٹ 2 ورسز تھی. سو بہت سارے حدیث سرٹن میں آتا ہے, میرے پاس ان حدیث کا نمبر بھی ہے ریفرنس, that probably these two are false حدیث, اور اس کے جو رپورٹر تھے ان حدیث کے, اس کا نام تھا عمرہ بن خزم ہے, اوکے. سو ان کو کہا جاتا تھا کہ ان کی جو گواہی ہے یہ ایک بندے تھے, لیکن یہ 2 آدمی کے برابر ہے, ٹھیک ہے. تو ایسا ان کے بارے میں کہا جاتا تھا. اور یہ جو چیپٹر نمبر 9 کے جو لاسٹ 2 ورسز ہے, اس کا جو ٹیسٹیمنی تھی بس یہ انہی نے دی تھی, انہی نے بتایا تھا, دیٹس اٹ. سو مجھے آپ سے یہ جاننا ہے کہ کیا یہ دونوں قرآن کی آخری چیپٹر نمبر 9 کی بس آخری جو لاسٹ 2 آئے تھے صحیح ہے کہ غلط ہے؟ کیونکہ ہمارے پاس سرٹن حدیث آتے ہیں, 5 یا 10 حدیث ایسے ہیں جو کلیئر انڈیکیشن دے رہی ہیں کہ these hadiths are not part of these verses are not part of Quran and it was later added. میں آپ کو ان حدیثوں کا نمبر بتا دے رہا ہوں. سب سے پہلی جو حدیث ہے ہمارے پاس وہ ہے صحیح البخاری کی 4489. جی
صبر کر لو آرام سے. اب ایک چیز بتاتا ہوں صبر. ایک چیز پہلے سمجھو. ایک چیز ہوتی ہے متواتر, ایک چیز ہوتی ہے احاد حدیث. اس میں فرق پتہ ہے؟
متواتر مطلب کہ جس کی جو چین آف نریشنز ہے اٹس ویری اسٹرانگ, رائٹ, اف آئی ایم ناٹ رانگ.
میں آپ سے فرق پوچھ رہا ہوں, احاد حدیث اور متواتر میں فرق پتہ ہے؟
متواتر کا پتہ ہے, احد کا آئیڈیا نہیں ہے. کین یو ایکسپلین؟
ٹھیک ہے, میں سمجھاتا ہوں. علماء حدیث جیسے کہ ان کو بھی لے لو, امام غزالی بھی لے لو, امام نووی بھی لے لو, اور ابن حجر الاسقلانی, امام سیوطی بھی لے لو. سب نے بتایا ہمیں کہ علماء کی حدیث ہے, حدیثوں کے درجات ہوتے ہیں. ضعیف ہوتی ہے, حسن ہوتی ہے, صحیح ہوتی ہے, پھر متواتر ہوتی ہے, پھر صحیح کے بھی درجات ہوتے ہیں. صحیح لی ذاتی ہوتی ہے, صحیح لی غیری ہوتی ہے, پھر صحیح جو ہوتی ہے لی ذاتی ان کی بھی درجات ہوتے ہیں. صحیح غریب, صحیح نہیں مشہور اور غریب بھی ہوتی ہے, عزیز بھی ہو سکتی ہے. تو یہ درجات ہے حدیثوں کے صحیح حدیثوں کے درجات ہیں. صحیح حدیثوں کے بھی 3 درجات ہیں. پھر اس کے بعد متواتر آتی ہے. متواتر جو ہے اس کے بارے میں وہ سمجھو اس طرح کی چیزیں اس کے بارے میں یقین ہے اس طرح تک. قرآن جو ہے وہ متواتر ہے. قرآن از متواتر بائی دی اجماع آف آل دا اسکالرس. اور یہ جو حدیثوں کے اسکالر جو امام بخاری ہیں بہت حدیث کے اسکالر ہیں, جن کی تم بخاری کی حدیث بتا رہے ہو نا, جنہوں نے خود حدیث لکھی ہے وہ خود مانتے ہیں جو قرآن ہے وہ پورا, جو عثمانی قرآن ہے وہ پورا متواتر ہے. ٹھیک ہے,
نہیں پرابلم یہ
صبر, بات پوری نہیں بیٹا, بات پوری نہیں ہوئی. تو اس کے آگے ہم یہ بولتے ہیں کہ جو آپ حدیثیں لا رہے ہو جو صحیح بخاری کی حدیث ہے, لیٹس ازیوم وہ حدیث ہے, میں ابھی کچھ اس میں انویسٹیگیٹ نہیں کر رہا, وہ اگر صحیح بھی ہے, صحیح لی ذاتی ہیں, صحیح لی غیری ہیں, یا کیا ہے, لیٹس سے صحیح مشہور بھی ہیں, متواتر نہیں ہے, وہ پھر بھی متواتر چیز کی نفی نہیں کر سکتی. کوئی بھی چیز اگر ایک صحیح بخاری میں ہو وہ متواتر چیز کی نفی نہیں کر سکتی, کیونکہ متواتر کا درجہ زیادہ ہوتا ہے. قرآن متواتر ہے, اور اگر صحیح حدیث ہے بھی تو وہ متواتر نہیں ہے. سمپل سی چیز ہے, اصولی بات یہ ہے. اصولی میں جواب دینا چاہ رہا ہوں کہ بھائی صحیح ہر ایک حدیث کی میں دکھاؤں گا کہ بھائی یہ اچھا یہ صحیح نہیں ہے, یا اس میں کیا بولتے ہیں یہ صحیح لی ذاتی ہی نہیں ہے, صحیح لی غیری ہی ہے. بہت ساری چیزیں پھر دکھانے بیٹھا ہوں, پھر الگ لمبا چکر ہو جائے گا. ٹھیک ہے, تو اس کا سب سے بڑا ایویڈنس یہ ہے کہ جو امام بخاری رحمہ اللہ تھے وہ خود he himself did not believe that the Quran is not itself preserved. ٹھیک ہے, جو تم نے ابھی ایک حدیث بھیجی ہے مجھے, اب دیکھو اس کو میں پورا پڑھنے بیٹھوں گا بہت لمبا ہو جائے گا.
نہیں آپ کو پورا نہیں پڑھنا ہے.
سمپل, صبر تو کر, صبر نا, میں سمپل سی تمہیں ایک ٹرک بتاتا نا. جاؤ اگر تم کسی مسلم کنٹری, بلکہ نان مسلم کنٹری میں بھی ہوگے, یا انڈیا میں ہوگے, پاکستان میں ہوگے, کوئی ایسی جگہ ہی ہوگے, اگر کوئی امریکہ یا یو کے میں بھی ہو تو بھی مسئلہ نہیں ہے. جاؤ کوئی عالم کے پاس جاؤ, ان کو بولو بھائی یہ حدیثوں کے بارے میں کوسچن ہے. اگر ٹروتھ سیکر ہو تو جا کے ان سے پوچھ لو, وہ لوگ بیٹھ کے انڈیویجول حدیث بتائیں گے. لائیو میں میرے پاس اتنا ٹائم نہیں ہے کہ میں انڈیویجول حدیثیں بیٹھ کے سمجھاؤں, ورنہ میں نے اصول بتا دیا. ٹھیک ہے,
میں آپ کو پورا کوشچن بتا رہا ہوں. لسن, کوشچن سن لیجیے. دیر واز اے سرٹن گائی, آئی ڈونٹ وانٹ ٹو ٹیک ہز نیم, سو ہی کالڈ ہمسیلف میسنجر, اوکے. اور اس نے بولا کہ جو قرآن ہے وہ 19 کے معجزے کے اوپر بیٹھتا ہے. ٹھیک ہے, اینڈ دین اس کے بعد اس نے بولا کہ جو چیپٹر نمبر 9 کی جو آخری 2 ورسز, رائٹ, دے آر ناٹ دا پارٹ آف قرآن. اور اس نے سرٹن ریفرنسز دیے ہیں. At first I was like آتھو یہ بندہ جھوٹ بول رہا ہے, بے غیرت ہے, جھوٹ ہے, دجال ہے. Then after that I read his reference, okay. Then میں گیا سنن النسائی کی حدیث پہ. Then actually he was right. جو خزیمہ کی جو witnesses تھی, جس نے چیپٹر نمبر 9 کی جو آخری 2 verses کو رپورٹ کیا تھا, خزیمہ کی 1% تھا وہ, لیکن اس کی witnesses 2% کے برابر تھیں. O messenger of Allah made the testimony of Khuzaimah equivalent to the testimony of 2 men. صحیح حدیث ہے یہ. اوکے, اینڈ دین اس کے بعد سے اور یہی بندہ تھا جس نے جو قرآن کی جو چیپٹر نمبر 9 کی جو آخری 2 ورس ہے اس کو رپورٹ کیا تھا. اینڈ ہمارے پاس بہت سارے ایسے سرٹن حدیث ہیں جو مطلب یہ کہتے ہیں کہ دیز ور ناٹ پارٹ آف قرآن لاسٹ 2 ورسز. میں آپ کو اگر پوچھیں تو میں آپ کو ساری حدیثیں میں شیئر کر دوں گا.
تو تم نے جو حدیث شیئر کیا اس کی اسٹرینتھ کیا ہے؟ صحیح ہے، حسن ہے یا کیا؟
موسٹ آف دا کیس میں تو لکھا رہتا ہے بٹ ہیئر اس میں لاسٹ میں لکھا ہوا ہے صحیح. ٹھیک ہے،
کہاں
مین کے
لکھا
بعد
ہے؟
سے
مجھے
صحیح
نہیں
لکھا. آپ اسکرین شیئر کریے، میں آپ کو دکھاتا ہوں.
دکھا دیکھ
اس میں لکھا ہوا ہے صحیح. نہیں،
نہیں
اس میں اس ٹائپ سے نہیں لکھا ہے، مین کے بعد لکھا ہے صحیح. بریکٹ دے کے لکھا ہے صحیح. اوکے،
ہاں تو اب یہ دیکھو کہ ٹھیک کیا، لیٹس سی. اب اس کو تھوڑی انویسٹیگیٹ کریں. بائی دی وے حدیث میں کہیں نہیں لکھا، امام نسائی نے خود نہیں لکھا ہوا، نہ ہی ادھر لکھا ہوا.
اس میں صحیح لکھا ہے.
ایک چیز میں سمجھاتا ہوں. زیادہ تر جو ایسا ہوتا ہے نا کیسز، اس میں یا تو یہ صحیح لی غیری ہی ہوتی ہے، مطلب کہ صحیح بائی اٹ سیلف یا صحیح بائی اندر ہے. ٹھیک ہے، یا تو ایک حصہ اس حدیث کا صحیح ہے. اب وہ کون سا حصہ ہے تحقیق کرنی پڑے گی، اس لیے میں بول رہا ہوں ایک عالم کے پاس چلے جاؤ. لیکن میں جو اصولی بات کر دی تمہارے ساتھ وہ یہ ہے کہ قرآن itself is متواتر. اسی لیے امام نسائی جو تم نے حدیث جن کی دی خود میری بات سے افرم کریں کہ بھائی کتاب میں کوئی وہ نہیں ہے جو قرآن جو عثمانی قرآن ہے that itself is the Quran that is preserved.
قرآن is
لیکن یہ
preserved,
خود حدیث
okay? Quran is preserved, there is no doubt about that. The question only arises کہ جو last 2 verses ہیں اس کے علاوہ جتنی قرآن ہے اسے پرزرو ہے، انچینج ورڈ ہے، رائٹ. لیکن جو چیپٹر سورہ توبہ کی جو آخری 2
یہی
آیات
تو
ہیں
بات نہیں سنو میری بات، یہی تو سنو. قرآن ایک ایز اے ہول از متواتر، ایز اے ہول از متواتر. اگر کوئی صحیح حدیث بھی لا رہے ہو، جیسے نہیں ہے صحیح حدیث، جیسے کانٹرڈکشن میں دکھ بھی نہیں رہی، نہیں لیٹس سے اگر کوئی صحیح حدیث بھی لا رہے ہو، سو وی ول ناٹ ٹیک، وی وونٹ سے دیٹ اٹ از کانٹرڈکٹری. ہم لوگ ان میں ریکنسیلیشن کرتے ہیں حدیثوں میں. ٹھیک ہے، تو یہ ایبروگیشن کی بات ہو سکتی ہے، تو میں دیکھنا پڑے گا، تحقیقات کرنی پڑیں گی مجھے بھی اس پہ. صحیح ہے، تو یہ چیز ہوتی ہے.
حدیث آر امپورٹنٹ، حدیث آر امپورٹنٹ. اب یہ تو نہیں دیکھ سکتے نماز پڑھنے
میں
کا
کب بول
طریقہ
رہا ہوں
ایون
میں کب بول رہا ہوں
حدیث
حدیث
میں
آر
mentioned ہے.
امپورٹنٹ؟ میں کب بول رہا ہوں حدیث آر امپورٹنٹ؟ میں نے نہیں بولا. اب بات سنو، تم نے بولا نماز پڑھنے کا طریقہ، نماز پڑھنے کا طریقہ حدیث متواتر ہے، ان کی اسپیسیفک ڈیٹیلز حدیث متواتر نہیں ہے. اس لیے اگر میں رفع دین کروں یا نہیں کروں، میں کسی کو بدعتی نہیں کہتا جبکہ وہ الگ نماز پڑھے میرے سے. ایگزیکٹلی یہی پوائنٹ ہے، کیونکہ وہ اگر صحیح ہاتھ کیا بولتے ہیں، ہاتھ نہیں باندھنے کی، رفع دین کرنے کی حدیث، ہاتھ نہیں باندھنے کی صحیح حدیث سے موجود ہے، لیکن متواتر حدیث سے موجود نہیں ہے. صحیح، تو اس لیے میں دوسرے بندے کو بدعتی نہیں کہتا. ایگزیکٹلی یہی بات ہے کہ بھائی قرآن کے بارے میں متواتر ہے. جیسے فار ایگزامپل کہ ہمارے پاس نماز 5 وقت کی نماز ہے، اس کی متواتر حدیث ہے، اور اس کا کوئی انکار کرے گا تو کافر ہو جائے گا. ٹھیک ہے، لیکن رفع دین کرنا یا نہ کرنا اس کی متواتر حدیث سے نہیں ہے، تو اس کا اگر کوئی انکار کرے گا تو کافر نہیں ہوگا یا نہ ہی بدعتی ہوگا، کیونکہ ان کے پاس بھی باقاعدہ دلائل ہے. ٹھیک ہے، ویسے ہی اصولاً جو اصول یہی ہے کہ قرآن itself متواتر ہے، قرآن ایز اے ہول itself متواتر ہے. تو اگر اس کے بارے میں اگر کوئی اور چیز اگر مل بھی رہی ہے، جو حدیث اگر حسن مل رہی ہے یا ضعیف مل رہی ہے، جو بھی مل رہی ہے، تو ہم اس کو
مل رہی ہے.
بولیں گے ہاں نا، تو ہم اس کو یہی بولیں متواتر کے خلاف ملتی ہے تو ہم کنسیلیشن کرتے ہیں. اس کو کہتے ہیں کنسیلیشن.
اوکے، آپ چیک کر لیں پلیز، چیک بخاری 4679. ٹھیک ہے، پلیز میں آپ سے ریکویسٹ کر رہا ہوں، بخاری کی 4679 کو آپ چیک کریں. میں آپ کو اس سے بتاتا ہوں. اس میں پھر پڑھیں I found خزیمہ 2 verses of سورہ التوبہ which I did not found with anybody else. ٹھیک ہے، آپ اس کو دیکھیں.
پہلا سوال تمہارے سے یہ ہے، پہلا سوال تمہارے سے یہ ہے، امام جو بخاری ہیں وہ خود قرآن کو پورا مانتے تھے یا نہیں متواتر؟
تو آپ اس کو دیکھیں کہ یہاں پہ آپ پڑھ لیں. جی
سوال میرا تو سن لو. جو امام بخاری ہیں پورا قرآن خود متواتر مانتے تھے نہیں مانتے تھے؟
I haven't searched about this, but آپ کو کیا لگتا ہے
Obviously
مانتے تھے کہ نہیں؟
obviously مانتے تھے. امام بخاری کی تم عقائد کی کتابیں جا کے پڑھو نا, کیا کیا لکھتے ہیں وہ. جو بندہ قرآن کو نہ مانے تو کیا کیا سختیاں, قرآن کو اگر مخلوق بھی مانے تو بھی کیا کیا لکھتے ہیں وہ. یہ بہت جس کو اسٹوڈنٹ نالج کو پتہ ہوتی ہیں چیزیں. اب یہ سوال ہے کہ اگر امام بخاری یہ حدیث نوٹ کریں تو وہ کیوں نہیں بول رہے بھائی کہ بھائی یہ تو قرآن کا حصہ نہیں ہے؟ سمپل سی بات ہے کہ جو چیز آپ لینا چاہ رہے ہو اس حدیث سے وہ نکل نہیں رہا.
نہیں, بٹ سورہ توبہ کی جو آخری 2 آیات ہیں, ٹھیک ہے نا, there are certain issues you can't deny it. بہت سارے scholars ہیں, not just 1 or 2, there are a lot of scholars who say کہ جو سورہ توبہ کی جو آخری 2 آیات ہے 128 and 129, these are not the
پانچ اسکالرس کا نام بتا دو جو بولتے ہیں کہ قرآن کی آیتیں ان کی آیتیں ہیں. 5 اسکالرس کے نام بتا دو. تم نے بولا بہت ہے نا,
نہیں
5 اسکالرس کے نام بتا دو.
نہیں, میں
5
ان
کے
کے
نام
نام
بتاؤ.
نوٹ نہیں.
اچھا مجھے میں بتاؤں میں کیسے سرچ کیسے کروں ان کے بارے میں. ابھی سرچ کرتا ہوں ان کے بارے میں, پلیز بتاؤ. 5 صرف
سرچ کی does all scholar believe that chapter number 9
مجھے
verse
5
number
اسکالرس چاہیے.
120.
مجھے 5 اسکالرس چاہیے.
اوکے, میں سرچ کروں کہ آپ کریں گے؟
آپ بتاؤ. آپ مجھے 5 اسکالرس کے نام چاہیے مجھے ابھی. آپ نے بولا بہت اسکالرس ہونے چاہیے, ایسی کوئی گلی کا بندہ نہیں ہونا چاہیے.
جی اوکے, سو ایک بندے کا نام ابھی مجھے ملا, اس کا نام ہے ایڈٹ اسکیل. میں نام سرچ کر رہا ہوں. ٹھیک ہے, یہ بولا ہی از کوائٹ پاپولر. اینڈ اگر بندے کا نام ٹھیک ہے, ایک کا نام میں نے لکھا ہے, آپ اس کو ویریفائی کر لیں. کیا ہوا؟
یہ بندہ اسکالر نہیں ہے. یہ بندہ ٹویٹر پہ ہوتا ہے بہت زیادہ. ایک کام کرو, اس کا بلکہ نوٹ ایبے باس کرنا صبر کرو.
نہیں, but his points are right. He may be weird
میں نے
person.
اسکالر بھائی تم نے اسکالر بولا صحیح ہے. ایک میں سمپل سی چیز کروں گا میں سب کے لیے. یہ جس بندے کا نام لے رہا ہے اس نے فرید رسپانس سے ایک ڈیبیٹ کیا. اب تمہارے سے بس میں یہی ڈیل کر لوں گا. اس ڈیبیٹ میں یہ ساری چیزیں ہیں, یہ ساری ڈسکشن ہے, وہ جا کے دیکھو. 2C کرو نا, جا کے دیکھو, تم انشاءاللہ جواب مل جائیں گے. صبر کر لو.
میں نے فرید کی والی میں نے ڈیبیٹ دیکھی تھی, but still it's not come to certain conclusion and it was over within 10 minutes.
It wasn't over within 10 minutes. آدھے گھنٹے سے لمبی ویڈیو ہے.
نہیں, مطلب 30 منٹس بول رہا تھا میں, سوری غلطی سے.
نہیں یار بھائی دیکھو, اب میں تمہیں سیریسلی نہیں لے رہا, ٹھیک ہے. تم بہت یو آر آل اوور دا پلیس, ٹھیک ہے. یو آر ویری مچ آل اوور دا پلیس, ٹھیک ہے. اب بات یہ ہے کہ یہ جو بندہ ہے, یہ میں نے بھی اس سے ڈسکشن کی ہوئی ہے, اور ٹویٹر پہ بہت ایکٹیو ہوتا تھا ایک زمانے میں. ابھی پتہ نہیں ہوتا ہے یا نہیں, پتہ نہیں. یہ ادھر بھی ہوتا تھا, کلب ہاؤس ہوتی تھی, ادھر آتا تھا. بہت یہ بالکل ہی مذاق بندہ ہے, ٹھیک ہے. یہ بالکل ہی اس کی ہے نا بنیادیں خراب ہے. اس کو ہسٹری, اس کو ٹیسٹیمونی کی فلسفی نہیں آتی. اس کو بیسک ایپسٹمولوجی نہیں آتی, ٹھیک ہے. تو یہ بہت آل اوور دا پلیس والا بندہ ہے, ٹھیک ہے. تو تمہیں خود ہی اسی سے سمجھ آنا چاہیے. اچھا بائی دی وے, جو تمہیں I found with خزیمہ 2 verses of Surah Tawbah which I had not found with anyone else, and they were weirdly they had come from a apostle from the hell. It grieves that you should receive it if he wants to read it. The manuscript on which the Quran was collected remained with Abu Bakr till. صحیح ہے. اس حدیث سے یہ جو تم نے حدیث دیا اس سے ثابت بھی نہیں ہو رہا کہ یہ آیتیں صرف ان کے پاس تھی, ٹھیک ہے. ایک تو اس حدیث I found خزیمہ 2 verses of Surah Tawbah which I had not found with anyone else. اس کا مطلب یہ تھوڑی ہے کہ if it was not found with anyone else مطلب کہ anyone else did not have it. اس کا مطلب یہ تھوڑی ہے. جیسے فار ایگزامپل بھائی, اگر میں بولوں کہ بھائی میں نے کیا بولتے ہیں, میں پاکستان میں رہتا ہوں, میں نے آج تک ایسا بندہ نہیں دیکھا جو لنگڑا ہو. ایسی ایگزامپل دے رہا ہوں, I did not find anyone walking weird. اس کا مطلب یہ تھوڑی پاکستان میں کوئی بندہ لنگڑا چلتا نہیں ہے, لنگڑا کے چلتا نہیں ہے, سمجھ رہے ہو؟ تھوڑی ریزننگ کرتے ہو یار, اس حدیث سے ثابت بھی نہیں ہو رہا جو تم ثابت کرنا چاہ رہے ہو.
اچھا ٹھیک ہے, اس حدیث سے ثابت ہو رہا ہے صحیح البخاری کی
نہیں, دیکھو کاشف, I said اصول میں نے بتا دیے. متواتر احد حدیث متواتر حدیث سے بڑے بڑے درجے میں نہیں ہوتی. میں نے اس کا نماز کے پڑھنے کے طریقے سے بھی میں نے بتا دیا کیسے کیسے دیکھا جاتا ہے. پھر میں نے اس کے بعد تمہیں سمجھا دیا کہ یہ جو تم نے حدیث دی تھی اس سے کانٹریڈکشن نہیں. پھر تم نے نام لیا اس کا, وہ بندہ اسکالر بھی نہیں ہے. وہ بندہ کیا, اس کی ڈیبیٹ بھی میں نے شیئر کر دی, ادھر بھی شیئر کر دی, اپنے چیٹ پہ بھی, پرائیویٹ چیٹ پہ بھی شیئر کر دی. پھر اس کے بعد میں نے تمہیں یہ اصول بتا دی مینلی. پھر میں نے بتایا بھی امام بخاری جو ہے وہ خود اس حدیث سے وہ کنکلوژن نہیں لیتے. صحیح ہے, تو یہ چیزیں آپ اپنے پاس رکھو. میں نے انیشیلی بتا دیا کہ اگر تمہیں جینوینلی ٹروتھ سی کرو تو ایک عالم کے پاس جا کے ایک کر کے سوال پوچھو. ابھی لائیو میں میرے پاس اتنا ٹائم نہیں کہ ایک ایک حدیث کا میں جواب دوں. ابھی ایک کا میں نے جواب دے دیا اور اصول بتا دیا, بہت ہے. ٹھیک ہے,
نہیں,
اس کے علاوہ کوئی سوال ہے؟
4996 کا آپ دیکھ لیں.
ارے بھائی
نہیں,
اس کے علاوہ کوئی,
اس کے علاوہ ایک سوال ہے ویسے, بٹ آپ یہ ایک بار دیکھ لیں بیکاز پھر یہ irrelevant ہو جائے گا.
نہیں تو اس کے irrelevant نہیں ہوگا. اس کے علاوہ آپ سوال بتاؤ. میں نے آپ کا اچھا خاصا جواب دے دیا, بنیادی چیزوں کے بارے میں جواب دے دیا. ٹھیک ہے, آپ اس کے علاوہ
اچھا,
بتاؤ.
ہاں, اس کے علاوہ میں نے ادر کچھ ایکس سو کالڈ ایکس مسلمس کو دیکھا تھا, مجھے تو ریئل لگتے بھی نہیں ہے. تو انہوں نے ایک بات کہی تھی کہ the Quran which we have right now, جو ٹرانسمیٹڈ کیا گیا تھا according to Hafs and Asim, right? تو وہ کہا گیا تھا that there are at least 26 to 27 versions of Quran. Okay, اور اس میں یہ نہیں کہا گیا کہ بس there are changes in dialects, but اس میں یہ کہا گیا that there are a lot of changes, certain words are missing and certain points are missing. Okay, and جو manuscripts سے ملی ہیں اس میں تو زبر زیر پیش کچھ بھی نہیں تھا.
جس بندے کو کیا بولتے ہیں, جس بندے نے کلیم کیا ایکس مسلم ہے, اس کو عربی آتی تھی؟
ہاں, اس کو عربی آتی تھی. اس نے مطلب عربی آتی تھی کا سینس مطلب کہ وہ پڑھ سکتا تھا بٹ بولنی آتی تھی کہ نہیں, آئی ڈونٹ نو اباؤٹ.
پاکستانی تھا یا انڈین تھا؟
پاکستانی تھا جو ایک
ہاں
نہیں
ایگزیکٹلی,
مشتری فیمس
نہیں
ہو گیا.
آتی ہے, نہیں آتی ہے, نہیں آتی تھی. ٹھیک ہے, سمپل سی بات ہے, نہیں آتی تھی. اب بات یہ ہے کہ ایک عالم ہے, ایک جو اتھارٹی ہے, وہ بول رہا ہے کہ بھائی چینجز نہیں آئی, لیکن تم ایک ایکس مسلم کی طرح جس کو عربی آتی بھی نہیں ہے, تم اس کو ٹرسٹ کر رہے ہو, سینس بھی نہیں بنا رہا.
He is quite popular nowadays in India and Pakistan.
ہاں, تو پاپولیرٹی ٹروتھ ڈیفائن نہیں کرتی. جیسے میجورٹی ٹروتھ ڈیفائن نہیں کرتی, ویسے پاپولیرٹی ٹروتھ ڈیفائن نہیں کرتی.
تو پھر آپ نے جو کہا دین آپ نے بولا کہ آپ کیا چیز کا اتھارٹی مانتے ہیں بتائیں.
ایکسپرٹیز,
نہیں,
جیسے میں فار ایگزامپل میں ڈاکٹر سے میڈیسن کے بارے میں ڈاکٹر سے ہی پوچھوں گا, یا بیماری کے بارے میں ڈاکٹر سے پوچھوں گا, یہ کیا بولتے ہیں بگ بینگ کے بارے میں فزسسٹ سے پوچھوں گا, ویسے ہی قرآن کے بارے میں ایک عالم سے پوچھوں گا. سمپل سی بات ہے, بنیادی چیز ہے. ٹھیک ہے, میں کوئی ایکس مسلم کے پاس نہیں جاؤں گا, جو بندہ اس سائنس کا ایکسپرٹ ہے اس کے پاس جاؤں گا. سمپل.
اور ایک اور سرٹن کوشچنز تھے. لاسٹ کوشچن میرا, ایک کہا جاتا ہے کہ جو صحیح مسلم اور صحیح البخاری ہے, دیز آر ایز امپورٹنٹ آفٹر قرآن. ٹھیک ہے, دیز آر ویری امپورٹنٹ بک. ٹھیک ہے, اور ان کو ہر مسلمس کو 100% ماننا ہوتا ہے, نہیں تو وہ اسلام کے دائرے سے فار موسٹ آف دا مسلمس باہر ہو جاتا ہے. ٹھیک ہے, تو
کس نے بولا
میں
ہے,
نے
کس نے بولا ہے, کس نے بولا ہے؟
بہت سارے اسکالرس نے بولا. اب بولے نام بتاؤ.
ہاں, اب نام بتا دو. کسی نے یہ نہیں بولا
کہ جو بخاری اور مسلم کو نہیں مطلب کہ کمپلیٹلی نہیں مانتا ہے وہ اسلام کے دائرے سے باہر نہیں ہو جاتا ہے.
کوئی بھی نہیں بولتا ہے, کوئی عالم نہیں بولتا.
نہیں, بٹ ایسا کہا جاتا ہے نا کہ جو منکر حدیث ہوتا ہے وہ فیوچر ایتھسٹ ہو جاتا ہے.
منکر حدیث ایک الگ چیز ہے, اور صحیح بخاری اور صحیح مسلم کو 100% ماننا ایک الگ چیز ہے. منکر حدیث جو حدیث کو آؤٹ رائٹ بالکل ہی نہیں مانتا, ساری حدیثوں کو بولتا ہے نہیں مان رہا, میں صرف قرآن کو مان رہا ہوں, یہ بندہ کفر کر رہا ہے. صحیح ہے, صبر کرو 2 منٹ, تمہیں کال آ رہی ہے ذرا امپورٹنٹ. اچھا جی، تو اب میں یہ بول رہا تھا کہ کوئی یہ نہیں بولتا صحیح مسلم صحیح بخاری کو 100% ماننا ہے، صحیح ہے. بہت سارے علماء تھے جو کچھ حدیثوں کو بولتے تھے نہیں بھائی یہ حدیث صحیح نہیں ہے، یہ حدیث حسن ہے، یا یہ حدیث بالکل 100% ریلائبل نہیں. کچھ علماء بڑے بڑے علماء اسکالرس، ابن حزم رحمہ اللہ، ہم ان کو کافر تھوڑی بولتے ہیں، ہم کو عالم بولتے ہیں، ہم ان کی تو تعریفات کرتے ہیں. ہم کبھی کبھار یہ بول سکتے ہیں ہاں غلطی ہوگی ان سے، دس از ویلڈ، دس از کبھی، لیکن قرآن کے بارے میں نہیں بول سکتا کوئی بندہ ایسے. قرآن کے بارے کیونکہ سمپل سی بات یہی ہے کہ قرآن متواتر ہے، ہمیں یقین ہے کہ نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم سے آئی ہے، لیکن جو احادیث ہیں وہ احد ہیں، وہ متواتر کے درجات تک نہیں پہنچتے. کچھ اچھی خاصی حدیث صحیح بخاری کی مل کر متواتر پہنچ جاتی ہیں، جیسے کہ شق القمر، مون سپلٹنگ جو حدیث ہے وہ بھی متواتر ہے. میزان کی حدیث ہے، میزان جو ہے قرآن میں آئی بلیو اتنا کلیئر کٹ نہیں ہے، لیکن حدیث میں وہ ہے، میزان کے بارے میں متواتر آتے ہیں، تو وہ بھی اگر اس کا بھی میزان کا بھی انکار کرے تو پرابلمٹک ہے. لیکن اگر کوئی 100% صحیح بخاری کو صحیح نہیں بول رہا تو کافر ہو جائے گا، ایسا بالکل نہیں ہے.
نہیں، جیسے کہ لیٹس ٹیک دی ایگزامپل آف می، اوکے، میں مون سپلٹنگ والے حدیث کو نہیں مانتا ہوں، سو میں مطلب اسلام میں ہوں کہ نہیں فرام یور ورلڈ ویو؟
مون سپلٹنگ قرآن میں
نہیں، مطلب حدیث کو میں بول رہا ہوں، اس میں بھی
اگر تم مون سپلٹنگ کو نہیں مانتے کہ نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم مون سپلٹ کیا تھا تو یقیناً تو تم نے کفر کیا، ٹھیک ہے، یقیناً وداؤٹ ڈاؤٹ، کیونکہ قرآن میں شق القمر کی آیت ہے قرآن میں، ٹھیک ہے، صحیح ہے. لیکن اگر تم بول رہے ہو کوئی اسپیسیفک حدیث نہیں مان رہے تو ریزننگ دیکھنی پڑے گی، ٹھیک ہے، ورنہ تم بدعتی گمراہ کچھ بھی ایسی چیزیں مل سکتے ہو. لیکن اگر تم ایز اے ہول بول رہے ہو شق القمر کی جو آیات جو احادیث ہے وہ متواترات تک پہنچ رہی ہے، اگر تم ایز اے ہول نہیں مانو گے تو ہاں یہ کیونکہ وہ متواتر ہے. بات مسئلہ پتہ کیا ہے، مسئلہ متواتر کو نہیں ماننے کا مسئلہ، کیوں متواتر مطلب یہ ہوتا ہے کہ جیسے ہمیں یقین ہو گیا نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے بولا ہے، متواتر کو نہیں ماننا اس لائک سیئنگ نبی کی بات کو میں نہیں مان رہا. صحیح حدیث یا ایک ضعیف حدیث یا حسن حدیث کو نہیں ماننا، پاسبلٹی کہ نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے نہیں بولا ہو، پاسبلٹی حسن اور ضعیف حدیث کی پاسبلٹی ہے. جس فار ایگزامپل کبھی کبھار دو ویریشنز ہوتی ہیں صحیح حدیث کی ایک ہی وقت کے بارے میں، ایک صحابی نے یہ بولا ایک صحابی نے یہ بولا. اب دونوں چیزیں نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم ایک ساتھ تھوڑی بول رہے، صحابی نے خود ایک ویریشن بنا کے بتایا ہے کہ میں نے نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے یہ سنا، نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے یہ بولا تھا، تو تھوڑی ڈفرینسز ہیں. تو اگر ہم بولیں گے کہ بھائی ایک حدیث کو ہم بولے نہیں نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے یہ ایگزیکٹلی بولا ہوگا، ایک بندہ بولے مجھے لگ رہا ہے یہ بولا ہوگا، ہم کافر تھوڑی بولیں گے اس کا. لیکن اگر سارے صحابی بولے نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے گارنٹیڈ یہی بات کی ایگزیکٹلی سیم ورڈ ٹو ورڈ اور اس طرح سے بول رہے ہیں اور ہم نے انکار کر دیا اس کا آؤٹ رائٹ، تو ہم بولیں گے یہ غلط ہے، یہ کفر ہے، ٹھیک ہے، کیونکہ پھر وہ متواتر ہے، پھر ہمیں یقین ہو گیا نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے بات کی. پھر متواتر بھی دو طرح کی ہوتی ہے، ایک متواتر معنوی ہوتی ہے، ایک متواتر لفظی ہوتی ہے. قرآن متواتر معنوی بھی ہے، متواتر لفظی بھی ہے. کچھ حدیثیں متواتر لفظی اور معنوی ہیں، اکثر حدیثیں جو متواتر ہیں متواتر معنوی ہے، اپنی کانسیپٹ کے حساب سے متواتر ہیں، ورڈنگ کے حساب سے ضروری نہیں ہے متواتر ہے. تو پوری سائنس سے تمہیں اسٹڈی کرنی پڑے گی ایسے کرٹیسزم اٹھانے سے پہلے.
میں کرٹیسزم نہیں کر رہا ہوں، آئی وانٹ ٹو کلیئر مائی ڈاؤٹ. ٹھیک ہے، آپ نے بولا متواتر ہے، سو دیر آر ٹو حدیث، اور مجھے حدیث کے اوپر کوئی آبجیکشن نہیں کہ کیا لکھا ہے کیا نہیں، بٹ دیر از کانٹرڈکشن. ٹھیک ہے، ایک حدیث ہمارے پاس ایک صحیح بخاری کی ایک صحیح مسلم کی، بوتھ آر ڈسکرائبنگ دا سیم کیسز، لیکن ایک میں لکھا ہوا ہے دیٹ وین حضرت عائشہ میرڈ پروفیٹ محمد ہر ایج واز 7، ٹھیک ہے، اور ایک میں لکھا ہوا ہے ہر ایج واز 6، اور دونوں ہی متواتر ہے، رائٹ؟ تو یہ تو بہت
متواتر
بڑا
کیوں ہے؟
کانٹرڈکشن.
دونوں ہی متواتر کیوں ہے بھائی بتا دو یہ پہلے، اور دونوں حدیثیں سینڈ بھی کر دو، اللہ عالم میں نے 7 والی یاد بھی نہیں مجھے تو. متواتر کیوں پہلے یہ بتاؤ مجھے، دونوں متواتر کیسے ہیں بتاؤ.
مطلب کہ ان کی جو چین آف نریشنز ہے ان کو ہم مطلب اچھے سے ہم ٹریک کر سکتے ہیں، رائٹ، کہ کس نے رپورٹ
نہیں تو
کیا.
یہ متواتر یہ نہیں ہوتی، متواتر ہوتی ہے کہ اتنی زیادہ چین آف نریشن ہو کہ سب کا جھوٹ بولنا امپاسبل ہے، یہ ہوتی ہے متواتر، امپاسبلٹی تک پہنچتی ہے. ہو سکتا ہے ایک صحابی نے 7 بول دیا، ہو سکتا ہے مطلب ایک رپورٹ 7 بول دیا، ہو سکتا ہے ایک 6 بول دیا، اللہ عالم، میں نے دیکھی نہیں ہے، لیکن یہ کوئی وہ نہیں ہے، یہ متواتر نہیں ہے. متواتر ہونے کے لیے
کانٹرڈکشن تو ہے نا، both can't be true, either one
ارے
of them is true.
تو میں تو بول رہا ہوں نا کہ صحیح حدیثوں میں ہو سکتا ہے ایک صحیح حدیث ایک چیز بول رہی ہے، ایک صحیح حدیث ایک چیز بول رہی ہے، ہو سکتا ہے، اس پاسبل. صحیح مسئلہ ہے، جیسے میں نے بولا نا ایک ہی وقت کے بارے میں
نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم سے ایک ہی چیز رپورٹ کر رہے ہیں دو صحابی, لیکن ایک الگ بات تھوڑی بول رہے ہیں, ایک الگ بات بول رہے ہیں, ایک کی ورڈنگز الگ ہیں, ایک کی ورڈنگز الگ ہیں, ایک نے کچھ الگ طریقے سے بیان کیا, ایک نے کچھ الگ طریقے سے بیان کیا. دس از ویری پاسبل, اس میں مسئلہ تھوڑی ہے, صحیح حدیثوں میں ہوتا ہے. تم نے اصل میں مس انڈرسٹینڈ کیا ہوا صحیح حدیثیں کیا ہے. تم نے صحیح حدیثوں کو قرآن جتنا سرٹن لیا ہوا ہے. زیادہ تر صحیح حدیثیں قرآن جتنی سرٹن نہیں ہوتی, بہت ساری ہیں قرآن جتنی سرٹن, لیکن ساری ہیں نہیں, ایسا نہیں ہے. لیکن حجت ہیں کیونکہ وہ صحیح ہیں. دے آر اے ویلڈ سورس فار ریولیشن بیکاز دے آر صحیح. بٹ آر دے جسٹ ایز ویلڈ ایز دا قرآن؟ نو.
اور میرا ایک اور کوشچن تھا کہ ایز اے مسلم رائٹ, کیا میں یہ مان سکتا ہوں, کیونکہ میرا اسٹینڈ ان اپولوجیٹک ہے, آپ لوگ کی طرح نہیں ہے, کیا میں یہ مان سکتا ہوں کہ جو ہماری جو ارتھ ہے رائٹ, بہت سے لوگ مذاق اڑائیں گے کہ یہ فلیٹ ہے, ایز اے مسلم کیا میں مان سکتا ہوں؟
ہاں مان سکتے ہو, لیکن بالکل irrational ہے فرام مسلم پوائنٹ آف ویو. ابن تیمیہ رحمہ اللہ سے ہمیں یہ بھی باقاعدہ ملتا ہے کہ بھائی علماء کا ایک طرح سے یونانیمس اگریمنٹ ہو گیا ہے کہ بھائی ارتھ فلیٹ اب نہیں ہے, ٹھیک ہے. لیکن اگر تم مان لو تو مسئلہ نہیں ہے اس میں, ماننے میں
نہیں
کافر نہیں ہوگے, نہ کفر ہوگا, نہ بدعت ہوگی, کچھ بھی نہیں ہوگا, لیکن بس irrational ہوگا.
نہیں, لیکن یہ تو ماڈرنزم ہے نا اس میں, کس کے اندر کی اچھا ماڈرن سورسز بول رہے ہیں, کیونکہ قرآن
نہیں ہے
اور
نا,
حدیث میں
ماڈرن
تو
سورسز نہیں,
صاف صاف لکھا ہوا ہے کہ ہماری ارتھ فلیٹ ہے رائٹ.
نہیں ہے نا, صاف صاف نہیں لکھا ہوا.
میں آپ کو ایک ویب سائٹ سینڈ کر دوں گا, مسلم اسکیپٹک کر کے, ٹھیک ہے, آپ اس پہ دیکھ لیجیے گا. اس میں ایک دم کلیئر لکھا ہے کہ کہیں پر بھی مینشن نہیں ہے کہ جو ہماری ارتھ ہے وہ قرآن مینشن کر رہا ہے کہ وہ راؤنڈ ہے, لیکن مسلم
ہاں نا, لیکن
واٹر ڈاؤن.
کرائن ہے نا, کرائن ہے قرآن میں, کرائن ہے کہ ارتھ راؤنڈ ہے, باقاعدہ کرائن ہے. قرہ کا ورڈ استعمال ہوا ہے جب آربٹنگ, مطلب جب قرآن میں آیا نا کہ رات اور دن آربٹ کرتے ہیں, کس طرح سے آربٹ کرتے ہیں, قرہ کا ورڈ استعمال ہوا ہے. قرہ کا ورڈ صرف جب ہی استعمال, مطلب جو اوریجن ہے اس ورڈ کا, قرہ والا ورڈ استعمال ہوا ہے, اس کا مطلب یہی ہو سکتا ہے کہ وہ ایک آربٹ کر رہے ہیں. اس کا مطلب بیسکلی ہوتا ہے جیسے ہے نا عربی میں, عرب میں ٹربن ہوتی ہے نا, تو جب ان ایک ٹربن پہ جب ہم کپڑا چڑھاتے ہیں, پگڑی چڑھاتے ہیں, تو ایک راؤنڈ راؤنڈ گھماتے ہیں ہم. یہ صرف ایک اسفیریکل چیز پہ ہی ہو سکتی ہے یہ چیز. تو کرائن ہے, کرائن مطلب انڈیکیشنز ہے, قرآن میں انڈیکیشنز ہیں بالکل ہے کہ ارتھ راؤنڈ ہے, اسفیریکل ہے. اور یہی تو چیز شیخ الاسلام ابن تیمیہ آئی بلیو 11th سینچری کے ہے, ٹھیک ہے. وہ بول رہے ہیں کہ ہمارے اسکالرز میں تقریباً یونانیمس اگریمنٹ ہو گئی ہے کہ ارتھ فلیٹ نہیں ہے, راؤنڈ ہے, اسفیریکل ہے. وہ میں کوئی نئی ماڈرن بات نہیں کر رہا, میں ٹریڈیشنل اسکالر کی بات کر رہا ہوں, بہت پرانے.
یہ ماڈرنسٹ کی بات ہے کہ آپ لوگ مرتد اور کافروں کے پریشر میں آ کے آپ لوگ یہ سب بات بول رہے ہیں. اٹس اے ماڈرن بات,
یہ
ٹھیک ہے
کہاں
نا.
سے ماڈرن ہے؟ میں بول رہا ہوں ابن تیمیہ جو 11th سینچری میں رہتے تھے انہوں نے یہ بات کی ہے, تو ماڈرن کیسے ہوئی؟
پہلے سارے جتنے علماء تھے, جتنے اسکالرس تھے, انہوں نے یہ ایگری کیا تھا کہ جو ہماری جو ارتھ ہے اٹس فلیٹ. لیکن جو ماڈرنسٹ جو لبرلز آ گئے آپ
ارے
لوگ کی
بھائی
طرح,
میں 11th سینچری بول رہا ہوں, 11th سینچری کے شیخ الاسلام ابن تیمیہ رحمہ اللہ 11th سینچری انہوں نے کہا ہے یہ, تو یہ ماڈرن کیسے ہوئی؟
لیکن کتنے سارے اسکالرس اور علماء اس ایرا میں اس کے اوپر ایگری کرتے تھے. I just want to know.
انہوں نے تو یہی بولا ہے نا, بھائی میں صبر کرو, میں دکھا دیتا ہوں. بھائی از دا ورلڈ فلیٹ, بھائی تو میں یہی بول رہا ہوں, اگر تمہیں نہیں ماننا نہیں مانو, اٹس فائن. لیکن بات یہ ہے کہ بات یہ ہے کہ
نہیں, کیونکہ آج کی ڈیٹ میں فیوچر میں
ہاں, the sky is like he said agreed that the earth is like a ball. ہاں بہترین, یہ مل گیا نا مجھے. ہاں جزاک اللہ خیر.
نہیں, لیکن میں بول رہا ہوں
صبر
کہ اگر آپ
صبر
ماڈرن, اوکے,
ماڈرنس نہیں ہے نا میری بھائی, ماڈرنس نہیں ہے. یہ دیکھ لو, ٹھیک ہے, ادھر میں جلدی سے دکھاؤں گا اس میں. یہ دیکھو صبر ابن تیمیہ کا, ہاں ذرا شیخ الاسلام ابن تیمیہ انہوں نے بھی نریٹ کیا ہے پہلے کے اسکالر سے, ٹھیک ہے, کہ بھائی the sky is like a ball, and he said similarly that they were unanimously agreed the earth with all that it contains, the land and the sea is like a ball. He said this is indicated by the fact the sun, moon and stars do not rise or set over those who are in different parts of the earth, rather they occur in the east and the west. صحیح ہے, تو یہ پتہ ہے کب کیا, میں ابن تیمیہ رحمہ اللہ کو سرچ بھی کر لیتا ہوں, کام کرتا ہوں آپ کے لیے.
نہیں اب آپ بات سن لیجیے, اگر آپ
تو
جیسے
یہ
ماڈرنسٹ
دیکھو,
کو ہم سنیں گے
یہ
then
دیکھو,
پھر فیوچر میں
یہ ماڈرنسٹ لگ رہا ہے آپ کو, کس دنیا میں
نہیں
ماڈرنسٹ لگ رہا ہے میری جان,
نہیں تو
آپ کو یہ
اگر
دیکھو,
ہم
آپ یہ دیکھ لو نا ایک دفعہ, یہ آپ کو ماڈرنسٹ لگ رہا ہے. یہ سال ایئر دیکھو, پڑھو ذرا سا, کیا ہے 22 جن 12/30/63, یہ ماڈرنسٹ نہیں ہے, یہ ٹریڈیشنلسٹ ہے, کہیں سے ہی
نہیں
ماڈرن
پھر
نہیں.
آپ نہیں میں بس بول رہا ہوں کہ اسکالرس کی میں بات کر رہا ہوں. ہی از جسٹ اے پرسن, اوکے, ہی از ناٹ ہول اسلام, رائٹ.
ارے تو میں اس لیے تو بول رہا ہوں ہول اسلام نہیں ہے, تو اگر تمہیں ماننا ہے تو مان لو, لیکن یہ نہیں بولو کہ قرآن میں کلیئر کٹ یا فلاں ہے اور یہ 1% نہیں ہے. میں نے جیسے تمہیں پہلے ہی دکھایا کہ جو اسکالر نے بات کی ہے, انہوں نے ایک دوسرے اسکالر سے نریٹ کیا, پہلے تو ایک دوسرے اسکالر سے بھی نریٹ کیا. صحیح ہے, دیکھو پہلے انہوں نے ابن تیمیہ نے, ایک اسکالر ہے, انہوں نے ایک دوسرے سے ریلیٹ کیا, پھر آگے
فیوچر
لکھا
میں
ہوا ہے,
بولیں گے کہ
صبر تو
ایوولوشن
کرو,
صحیح ہے.
پھر آگے لکھا ہوا ہے unanimously agreed مطلب یہ نہیں ہوتا ایک دو بندے, ٹھیک ہے, اکثریت ہوتا ہے, ٹھیک ہے, سمپل سی بات ہے. اب ایوولوشن بات نہیں چلی, نہیں ہم تو بول رہے ہیں ایوولوشن غلط ہے, اب تم بولو فیوچر میں اگری کر لیں گے.
نہیں پھر فیوچر میں ابھی جیسے آپ نے ارتھ کے شیپ کو کیا لبرلز کے انفلوئنس میں آ کے ماڈرنسٹ کے, تو پھر آپ فیوچر میں وہ بھی کر لیں گے, رائٹ.
میں کب لبرل اور ماڈرنسٹ کی وجہ سے کر رہا ہوں, میں دکھا رہا ہوں عالم ہے, بہت بڑے عالم ہے, شیخ الاسلام ہے بھائی, ان کی کتابیں میں ویسے ہی پڑھ رہا ہوتا ہوں, ان کی عقیدے کی کتابیں پڑھتا ہوں میں, ان کی فتاوے میں پڑھ رہا ہوتا ہوں, تو ان کے یہ اوپینین بھی ہے. سمپل سی بات ہے, ماڈرنسٹ نہیں ہے, یہ ایویڈنس فرام دا قرآن اور سنہ کی بنیاد پر انہوں نے بات کی ہے. تو اس لیے اگر تمہیں نہیں ماننا تو میں فورس نہیں کر رہا, کہ کفر
اچھا ٹھیک ہے,
اور
میں آپ سے
ایمان کا
جاننا
مسئلہ
چاہ
نہیں
رہا
ہے.
ہوں کہ ٹھیک ہے, تو مجھے آپ یہ بتا دیں کہ جیسے آج کی ڈیٹ میں بہت سارے مطلب ماڈرن مسلمز آ گئے. ایک بندے کو میں سن رہا تھا, اس کا نام جواد ہاشمی تھا, وہ بولا کہ ایز اے مسلم یو کین بلیو ان ایوولوشن, رائٹ. تو پھر فیوچر میں آپ یہ بھی کہہ دیں گے کہ جو ایوولوشن ہے اٹس آلسو ناٹ کانٹرڈکٹری وتھ اسلام, اور ہم اس کو مان سکتے ہیں, جیسے آپ نے ارتھ کے شپ کو مطلب ماڈرنسٹ لبرلز مرتاز کے انفلوئنس میں آ کے آپ نے کہہ دیا. جواد ہاشمی کو آپ کلپ سنیے گا, اس نے کہا ہے کہ ایوولوشن.
جواد ہاشمی اسکالر نہیں ہے, جواد ہاشمی کچھ بھی نہیں ہے, ٹو بی آنیسٹ. میری بھی اس سے بات ہوتی ہے, بکواسیں کرتا ہے, ہی ڈزنٹ نو ہاؤ ٹو ٹاک اباؤٹ, اس کی عربی بھی صحیح نہیں ہے, ٹھیک ہے. اس کا ڈیبیٹ ہوا تھا, آئی بلیو ڈینیل حقیقت چو سے, اس کی عربی ہارینڈس ہے. وہ کیا بولتے ہیں, باقاعدہ ایک ویڈیو ہے اس کی ٹویٹر پہ آئی تھی, شیئر کی تھی کسی نے, نماز پڑھا رہا ہے وہ, اور نہیں آ رہی اس سے عربی, قرآن سورہ فاتحہ اس سے صحیح سے نہیں پڑھی جا رہی. صحیح ہے, تو ایک تو یہ بات ہے. دوسری بات یہ ہے کہ ایوولوشن جو ہے, ایوولوشن سے ہمیں صرف کامن اینسیسٹری سے مسئلہ ہے بس, ایز مسلم ہمیں کامن اینسیسٹری سے مسئلہ ہے. ورنہ اگر ایوولوشن, اگر کوئی بندہ کوئی اور سی چیز مان لے کہ بھائی ایوولوشن ہوتی ہے یا فلاں تو اس سے یہ کفر نہیں ہے. لیکن ایک بندہ اگر بول رہا ہے کامن اینسیسٹری مطلب آدم علیہ السلام کی الگ سے خلقت نہیں ہوئی, تو یہ وہ ہوگا, تو یہ غلط ہوگا.
نہیں, بٹ ابھی بہت سارے مسلم ڈائسپورا میں اسکالرس نے بولنا چالو کر دیا, آئی ایم ناٹ لائنگ, کہ جو ایوولوشن ہے کوئی کانٹرڈکشن نہیں اس کی اسلام کے ساتھ.
مسلم
میں آپ کو
اسکالرس کون,
3-4
میں بتاتا ہوں کون, میں بتاتا ہوں. یہ جاوید غامدی, قادیانی اسکالرس, کوٹ آن کوٹ اسکالرس قادیانی, جاوید غامدی, اور کون, اور کوئی بھی نہیں جو ہے نا اسپیشل کریشن نہیں مانتا.
خلیل اندانی,
خلیل اندانی, اسماعیلیز آر ناٹ مسلمس. اپنے کو کہتا ہوگا شور, لیکن ناٹ مسلم. اسماعیلیز مسلمان نہیں ہے, تھرو آؤٹ ہسٹری مسلمان نہیں کنسیڈر کیے گئے ہیں اسماعیلی. خلیل اندانی اسماعیلی ہے.
تھرو آؤٹ ہسٹری کا آپ نے بات بولا نا ابھی,
جی
تو پھر میں وہی بولا کہ تھرو آؤٹ ہسٹری مسلمز مطلب کمپلیٹلی ایگری دیٹ ارتھ واز فلیٹ. لیکن پھر آپ کے جیسے لوگ آ گئے نہیں ایوولوشن کو نہیں مانوں گا لیکن
ارے بھائی اچھا بھائی اب کاشر آپ بکواس بند کرو اپنی, بہت ہو گئی. صحیح ہے, سمپل سی بات ہے, میں نے تمہیں اسکالر دکھا دیا ہے جو ماڈرنسٹ نہیں تھے, جو بہت پرانی ہسٹری میں ہے, 1200 میں تھے, انہوں نے یہ بات کی ہے, پھر بولا یونینیمسلی اگریڈ ہے. پھر بھی تم بعد میں بولے جا رہے ہو بھائی کہ بھائی نہیں ماڈرنسٹ کی وجہ سے بول رہے ہو. اپنی پلیز بکواس بند کرو, یا تو صحیح بات کرو یا تو چپ ہو جاؤ, ٹھیک ہے؟ سمپل سی بات ہے, بہت ریسپیکٹفلی بات کی ہے, سمجھائیے میں نے, لیکن تم بار بار اسی بات پہ آئے جا رہے ہو, عجیب. ٹھیک ہے, بس ہو گئی اب بات. ویلکم.
بات
جی بھائی, اور کوئی اسپیکرز جو ڈسکشن کرنا چاہ رہے ہیں, بالکل بھائی لنک ہے اویلیبل ہے, آئیں ڈسکشن کرتے ہیں, اور یہ ڈسکشنز اور کیا بولتے ہیں فروٹفل بناتے ہیں انشاءاللہ تعالی. رائٹ, اوکے, صحیح. چلو, تو ابھی آپ لوگوں نے دیکھا کہ بھائی میں نے کس طرح سے بندے کو بتاتے رہا کہ بھائی بتاتے رہا کہ بھائی یہ چیز علماء نے کہی ہے کہ فلیٹ نہیں ہے, بہت سارے علماء نے کہی ہے, ماننے کوئی نہیں جا. اب میں کیا کہوں, ہاں مجھے بھی لگ رہا ہے اس کا بستہ اسلام کو میں غلط دکھا دوں کچھ کر کے, اور اپنے آپ کو مسلمان ریپرزینٹ کر رہا ہے, اسی طرح کا مجھے بھی لگ رہا ہے, لیکن ہو نہیں پایا, اس سے مسئلہ ہو گیا انفارچونیٹلی, غلط جگہ آ گیا. یہ چلو, لنک اویلیبل ہے, جوائن دا لنک. اچھا, اور اگر کوئی کوشچنز ہیں تو چیٹ میں بھی ڈال سکتے ہو, میں ان کا بھی جواب دینے کی کوشش کروں گا. چلو میں دیکھتا ہوں ذرا سا, یہ صحیح ہے, یہ کوشچن دیکھتا ہوں ذرا. یہ مسلم پلے کر رہا ہے, مسلم ہے نہیں, ہو سکتا ہے, بالکل ہو سکتا ہے, ایسے بہت آتا ہے. اتنا بھی ویک اس ایمان مسلم ہو, وہ قرآن کے بارے میں ایسی بات کر ہی نہیں سکتا, ایکسیپٹ وہ بندہ قادیانی ہو یا قرآن میں مسٹیکس کلیم کرتا ہو سکتا ہے قادیانی اسماعیلی ہو سکتا ہے. اچھی گئی ہے ویسے آج کی اسٹریم, الحمدللہ سے لوگ آئے, جوائن کیے, بات کی. یہ کرسچنز نہیں آتے یار, کرسچنز پہلے آتے تھے. الحمدللہ میں خود خوش ہوں بھائی, میں ڈسکشن کر پا رہا ہوں. میں لائیو آ کر 2 دن ہو گئے, 3 دن ہو گئے بلکہ باقاعدہ. یا اللہ, چل بھائی یہ دیکھو بھائی, ہیلو سسٹر داوا, کم فیس ٹو فیس ود سائڈ ایڈم. یا اللہ کیسے لوگ ہوتے ہیں.
ایک ساحل اور ایدم سیکر نے خوب جگہ دیکھ لیا تھا بھائی، ہم نے دیکھ لیا تھا کیا ہوا تھا، صحیح پیٹا تھا، مزہ آیا تھا بھائی. الحمد للہ اسٹریم اچھی رہی. اب میں سوچ رہا ہوں کہ بس اب اینڈ کرتے ہیں. الحمد للہ سے اسٹریم کافی اچھی رہی ہے، کافی ٹائم ہو گیا، کافی لیٹ بھی ہو رہا ہے. اب اسٹریم اینڈ کرتے ہیں. جو بھی دیکھ رہے ہیں لائک کریں، شیئر کریں، سبسکرائب کریں. الحمد للہ بہت مزہ آیا ڈسکشن کر کے. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ.